Approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Tracy. Yeah. I think we're gonna keep everything in order the way it's going right now, so. All those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The minutes from our last August 2nd meeting. Has everybody read them?
Yes,
Okay,
I can approve.
okay, Doug, is there a second?
I'll move.
Okay, Tracy. Hearing a change came in. Hearing no changes, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Now, so clerk, do we have somebody up there
Yes.
for
there are
public
some people
comment? So we'll do
upstairs.
public comment for 30 minutes. State your name, where you're from, and we'll start with that.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bob Wright. I live in the town of Osceola. And my comments are regarding the Blue Rock CUP application that's on the agenda today. I was a town supervisor when a similar project was proposed at the same site by Kramer Mining and Materials back in 2008. We recommended that the permit be denied, and it was because the project was incompatible with the surrounding residential land use. The Blue Rock application is just a revision of this denied CUP. At the end of the public hearing last year, you gave the applicants a year to provide you with additional information, yet they have failed to do so. The county has spent enough on CUP applicants who do not cooperate. And as you heard in the public testimony last year, the project they are proposing is still incompatible with the surrounding residential land use. Please deny the permit. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
My name is Susan Birch. I live at 2141 90th Avenue. This proposed project is bordering our property. We have fought this application, not just this one, but one the previous by the Kramer Mining Corporation. I would like you to please deny this CUP application today for all of the reasons that Bob Wright just spoke of. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Clark. I'm a township resident, Osceola Township. My whole life, family's been there forever. Nobody lives closer to a mining operation than I do. Bear that in mind. I built there knowing what the trap rock situation was and the blasting and the trucking and so forth. I hear all the trucks by my driveway every day. I'm within less than a quarter of a mile from the crushing operation. So I'm fully aware, can speak with some authority on what the issues are. I have no complaint. I built there after they were there. And that is the huge difference here. You have multiple property owners in the East Lake and surrounding area around this application that have built there, never expecting there to be another mine in that area. I beg of you to take 2 tablets, and I've said this for the last number of years. To anybody that's asked me about why I am against this, if you take 2 tablets and on the first tablet, you write down everything positive that could happen to the village of Dresser, to the township of Osceola, or to the county of Polk, if this application were to be allowed. You will only fill a portion of that first page. If you start writing on the other tablet that you have in front of you and try to write down everything negative that can go wrong with this situation for the county, for the township, for the village of Osceola, or for the village of Dresser, I should say, and somewhat for the village of Osceola, based on the fact of all the trucks that are going to coming and going from this operation and the mining situation. They might say that we're going to do everything we can to limit the noise and the repercussions from the mining. But every time you set off a blast, there's a different reaction. Sometimes it's great in the foundation of your houses. Sometimes you don't feel it at all, depending on what's down there at the levels that it takes to vibrate through the ground. But the streets and the township roads and the county roads that are going to be involved here, if you think for 1 minute that there's going to be trains taking out some of this, that isn't going to happen. It isn't happening at the Trap Rock Quarry right now, and it hasn't been happening for the last couple of years because of the dispute between the CN and the CP rail. I'm begging you to make the right decision here. And if you vote for the majority of the population, which you are there to represent, you have to say no. Thank you very much, Robert Clark.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Only two other people up there. All right, then we will close public comment. Move on. Do we have? We don't have any other supervisors here, do we? We do not. So number 5. All right, so we will go, Bob, to number 6.
Good morning. Keep you real brief, Chairman O'Connell. Not a lot to report on the Comprehensive Trail Network Plan. We did get the last deliverable from our consultants, SRF, on the feasibility study and evaluation of routes for ATVs, UTVs, and equestrians to connect St. Croix Falls with the to Burnett County border. That last deliverable is the actual comprehensive report. I have several copies if you're interested. I know Mr. O'Connell has quite a library of research and past plans. But no, I do have several copies if you're interested. And again, I think this was a valuable exercise. We did learn some things. And in the event, we want to look at different use patterns or opening up the master plan for the Gandy. I think this would be a helpful supportive document. So that's that. Another update is the St. Croix Falls Trailhead Restrooms / Bike Station project that we are subsidizing. I talked to the city administrator this morning. I don't know if you've driven by, it's 60% complete. Both the walls and the roof are on or done. And so they're working on the interior next. So we're at like 60% completion. With that, I can take any questions.
Are they up on the new ATV in Sterling? Are they working on that, or is that
That's this fall.
they're waiting until fall?
I talked to the Parks Department. They were going to do the grubbing in early fall.
Early fall,
And
okay.
then we're going to farm out the actual layout because of we need to make that sure that that's correct. And what I mean by that is all the trail loops to flag those properly. So we have a good layout. SEH will be doing that. And if you remember them, they were the consultant firm that did the initial design. But the Parks Department will be doing much of the labor, from what I've been told. Good question.
So otherwise, the projects that we have kind of lined up, there are quite a few completed.
Yeah.
Top 13.
Right, yeah, if you recall, it's been about a month or 6 weeks now, like 2 or 3 meetings ago, I had a little matrix,
Yeah.
project schedule that identified the status of each of the 13 projects as well as the non-priority ones. I don't think there's a lot to update there. I'll take a look at it though, and maybe in a subsequent meeting, we can look at it and share where we're at.
Sure. All right. Anyone else? Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, number 8. To start this, do we?
7.
7.
I thought we did that last time.
I'll be very brief.
Okay,
Thank you for the opportunity to discuss budget. We're in the budget season and Claire will queue up that presentation. Short and sweet. Go to the next slide. This is just a visual of the budget process as it unfolds over the next couple of months. We're actually a little ahead. Today, which I believe is what, the 16th, we're going to be talking about some of the additional funding requests that have come through Bob's departments and also Register of Deeds. So running a little bit ahead of schedule. At the September meeting, Vince will provide a budget overview, kind of get us kicked off. Committees are down here, full board up here. Month of October, committees are, including yourself, will be considering budget specifics. Then Vince brings the draft budget to the board for discussion at the October meeting. By statute, we publish it in the paper shortly thereafter. And then you have an opportunity to approve the budget before deer season in November. Dan Ruck pointed out that we had an error last week. So that's the budget timeline. We're running a little bit ahead of schedule this year, which is great because last year we were running a lot behind. So on average, we're doing okay. Any questions about the schedule? There's some situational variables. I think many of you are aware of these. On the expense side, we're forecasting a challenging year with employee-related operating expense. Pay and benefits are likely to be up. That number has changed as of yesterday. I actually need to bump that up even beyond that 1.5 million due to some premium increases. Non-employee operating expense, we've got about $700,000 of new requests from departments and divisions overall. We'll be looking at some of those from environmental services in just a minute. And on the capital expenditure side, we got 1.5 plus to a little over 2 million in capital requests. So time to tighten the belt a bit. Revenue additions, got some. It's always good to get new money from the state. I don't think we got as much as we would have liked. Across all 72 counties, the governor and the legislature are distributing less money than is in our own annual budget. Our share of that's $566,000. It's a good time to be investing. So we're forecasting more investment income for this year. It's been a tough few years prior to now, and that's a variable, right? So we can't count on that forever. Interest rates go down, our ability to earn interest income will go down as well. Sales tax has been, for us, has been doing well. We've conservatively budgeted in the past. We're anticipating being able to up the number, our budget number, from about 4.4 to 4.8. So an additional $400,000 there. And about the same amount of net new construction as last year, 300,000 or so. If you take the stuff in the red and add it together and the stuff in the green, you see we got more forecasted additional expense than revenue. So we've been asking department and division directors to look at their cost structures and see what they can do. Those are sort of the situational variables. Next slide. I just covered some of this. So what do you do when you're in this situation? You ask your managers and directors to go take out the pencils and see what you can slice on the expense side. Look at hiring. If there's things that we don't need to hire right now, let's defer. Flat and reduce operating cost. Revenue side. Had a discussion of fees yesterday. That's a revenue recovery exercise. We'd like to ask our operations to earn more money if they can, get us more. GAM's got a plan this year to bring us a little bit more revenue than they did in the past. Behavioral health clinic may be able to bring some more revenue in as well. We always want to pursue additional extramural funding. We got a letter from a representative today saying, U.S. representative saying he's going to help us with that, and we're going to hold him to that promise. With that project list, that capital project list, we're likely to need to draw on the general fund for some capital projects or do some bonding. Vince mentioned briefly last night that we ran a surplus for 2022. So for your consideration, there will be some additional spendable dollars in the general fund. Any questions about this?
How much money will the fee increases from last night bring into just general government, or not general government, environmental services?
I think
Between 12 and 17. Yes. It's hard to predict because you don't know, how many permits, how the economy is going to be, but that's a rough penciled estimate.
So ballpark 15,000. I mean, 12, I assume is kind of a low, 17 is the high, and
Correct.
if 15 is the average.
other questions about how we're trying to deal with the situation? Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. And I'm going to sort of scoot out of the way a little bit. Bob knows more about these requests specifics than I do. I can give you sort of some high level orientation to the slide though. We've got land information, register of deeds, land and water. And the slide's broken out to show, to differentiate between capital and then operating non-personnel, so non-employee, and then operating personnel. So we've got about $18,000 in capital expense that Bob's departments are requesting, 33,000 in operating that isn't related to personnel, and about 8,000 related to personnel. So as in terms of process, Bob's requesting these, and Bob and Vince and I and others will have conversations about the priority of these. But of course, your input is not only welcome, but encouraged. So. Then you'll have a chance to see these again later. Really look.
Do you have any questions about any of those requests? I will point out forestry did not have either a capital or operational AFR additional funding request. Forestry didn't submit. So.
Now, does this include our planner and zoning or not? No FTEs in this? This
These
is,
are additional funding requests, not personnel. So these are capital costs.
okay.
Operating costs that we as a team in Environmental Services Division feel we need. A lot of them are simply, maintenance items. For example, the calibration of our survey equipment, as well as our calibration of our water testing materials as well. You all know about Next Gen 911. Believe it or not, coincidentally, yesterday, Brad Ruenberg and I applied for a Department of Military Affairs grant. Hopefully we'll get it, similar to what Public Protection did last year. If you remember, they needed to come up with the 20%.
Oh,
Recall that for dispatch and their software and hardware and training. So we applied for an $8,200 grant to help assist with that initiative through a summer internship. So in other words, rather than having just Brad do the data creation and migration for Next Gen 911, we're going to hopefully find an exceptional college graduate or college students to join us over the summer to do that data entry. ROD, Fiddler, they'd like to actually need to index their hard copies of those vial records. And so that's that request there. This storage unit, as well as these items, are basically capital expenses, furniture. We did a remodel, but really didn't have the, met our furniture needs. And then the most expensive one is this, which is code enforcement. I reached out to an outside legal firm to help assist with pursuing some of our frequent flyers, or folks that are problematic in the community that cannot seem to find compliance. So there's that.
Okay.
So the calibration on both of them there, is that a once every few years, or is that a?
Correct. Yeah, it's every 2 to 3 years. Yep.
And that record storage is a one-time purchase,
Yes, sir.
it's not like a lease agreement or something.
All right.
So like Don mentioned, we still have to sit down with administration and sort of prioritize these and vet them through vents and so forth. But this is a great opportunity to kind of share at least what our departments are requesting.
Sure. A starting point. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. All right, now number 8.
And I did receive, Bob and I received a letter yesterday from Attorney Anders Helpus, and he indicated he was going to be joining by Zoom. And so once Bob is done sort of summarizing how we got here, then I think we need to do a technical thing and figure out how we can make sure that he can communicate with the.
Oh, with us, okay. A different,
This is a different, yeah, just a different set of handouts. I'll explain what they are. It's just- yeah. So I just thought I'd take the opportunity and put together just some supporting documents. Basically, number one, this front page, that is our hearing format and processes for CUPs. And you're probably pretty proficient at them, considering how many we've been doing in regards to tourist rooming houses. I just thought I'd share that with you because where are we at today? Today, we're at number 10. If you look at that procedure, we're at number 10. The next page is the list of exhibits. Those are the exhibits submitted during the 2 public hearings. There's a total of, I believe, what do we got? 62, 60, sorry, 68, forgive me. 68. And that box over there in the corner, if you're really interested, that's where they all exist. So I believe both of these are in your packet as well. So if we didn't get the backside,
oh, that's it.
it's in the packet.
Yep,
Yeah.
all right.
So all those supporting documents highlighted in the list of exhibits are in the room, in the box. And then the last thing, number 3 there, that's the staff report from the hearing on June 29th, 2022. This works, Claire? It's working. So I'm going to be really brief here, and I'm going to start out with the application timeline.
It's a turn on.
It is. You know. So on January 17th, 2022, indirectly, our county administrator, the zoning office received the conditional use hearing application. If you recall, on June 1st, 2022 was the public hearing. There was continuation of that public hearing on June 29th. Within those two public hearings is where we received the 68 exhibits. As a product of that last public hearing, after the public hearing was closed, there was a motion by Kelly, Supervisor Kelly, second by Supervisor Olson, to postpone the Blue Rock Quarry conditional use permit application for up to 1 year based upon additional information needed as listed in the staff's recommendation. And the motion was carried by majority voice vote and opposed by Supervisor Rowdy. Today, August 16th, is your consideration of this conditional use application. I believe throughout this week, the county clerk has forwarded on several other more public comments. Granted, they're not public record or part of the, they're public record, but not part of the exhibits. And so today, after 13 and a half months, you are to decide on the application. I think after the decision, Malia has offered to draft the findings of fact, conclusions of law and decision subsequently. Here is the list of 13 items of additional information that were requested as part of the motion. And Chairman O'Connell, I can go through each of these and provide some context or not.
I don't think we will.
Okay.
They're here. We'll ask if they brought it or not.
Okay. But one thing I would like to do is just point out that, again, after reviewing the file, listening to the applicant's presentations, all the public comments, that on June 29, 2022, this committee felt that the application was incomplete and had not adequately addressed the standards listed into our code, which we're very proficient at by now, section 42-149 sub C, in order to grant this application. And if you recall, also within our code, within that same section, section 42-149 sub E, it allows the committee to secure facts and additional information to develop your determination. And for references, I have those on other slides, but I'm sure you're all aware of that code within our ordinances. So these are the 13 items of information that the ESC requested to be clarified, to provide that and to ensure that the standards listed in section 42-149C have been met based upon substantial evidence. With that, again, these are the information requests, and the applicant is here. And if you're interested, I suppose they could address these
I
13.
think he was gonna, I think he said he had a presentation, so we should listen to it because we did ask for it.
Did you hand out the letter?
I did last night. You all have this, correct? From last night, and I think Justin.
This letter.
Yep. You all read it after a long board meeting last night, this morning.
Well, let's have him speak. Then, and then we would Is the lawyer gonna be on to ask?
That's my, in the email, when he sent that letter, he indicated he would be appearing by Zoom.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
there, yep.
Okay.
Oh, he's here, okay.
Thank you. And so I believe we have to make him a panelist in order to have him be able to speak. Okay.
All right.
I'm not sure if it's time, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
Can you make his face bigger?
So thank you again. My name is Anders Hellquist. I'm the attorney for Blue Rock, and I appreciate you holding this follow-up meeting here. I sent this letter to Malia and to get passed on to the committee. And, the request here is trying to find a reasonable middle ground that allows the issuance of the conditional use permit while still addressing these staff report items. We are requesting issuance of the conditional use permit, but that you put as conditions certain items from those 13 additional items that you'd noted back in June of 2022. You can see on page 4 and 5 of the letter, how we'd propose to address each of those additional items. That one, both provides the accountability to Blue Rock and its eventual operator, but 2, also provides that oversight as enforceable conditions, where if these items are not adequately addressed to the committees or the county zoning department's satisfaction, this conditional use permit gets revoked. So, we would prefer to go, the route that we've proposed on pages 4 and 5. But unfortunately, as we also, detailed, there are very serious concerns that we have about the bias and outside fact finding and decision making by some committee members. So I'm not going to go through each of those with you here. We'd prefer to not even have to get to that point, and we'd prefer to just have a conditional use permit with reasonable conditions. So that's our request. And if Glenn's there, I don't know if he has anything else to add.
Ms. Glenn, do you have anything to add?
That's my comment.
Go ahead. Let's come up, get yours, because then we'll address some of these.
Good morning, I'm Glenn Thorman with Blue Rock. I'm not going to go into the labyrinth of tons of information you've all been deluged with. I am going to talk about one item today, less than 3 minutes, but I would like to share this with you because I don't believe you've heard this before. So I myself remember sitting in a room just like this, okay, when I was on the Polk County Board of Supervisors and sat on the Public Protection Committee. I can remember 2 occasions where I was surrounded by angry crowds of people, filled the room, 30 people. It felt like all of Polk County was in that room. And demands from that room was that their goal became my goal. And that's not why I represented the town of Farmington on that committee. As I looked over the crowd, I thought, these 30 people are not all Polk County, or not all of Polk County. Not even a small percentage of back then was 39,000 residents. The vast majority of the county was not in that room. They were truly, as I think our former president said, a silent majority. They didn't support the crowd's position. And we're okay if our committee voted against the crowd. That night, we and the committee made the right decision. The crowd wasn't happy, but our decision was based on facts and fairness, not on the sky is falling wild accusations from a small minority that they truly wanted us to believe. This morning, you on the committee are also charged with making the right decision based on reasonable expectations and the fairness that I've seen you show numerous other quarry applicants during the past several years. The anti-quarry minority would like you to believe, in fact, they do represent a vast majority of the neighborhood. You heard Mr. Clark state that the vast majority of the people are represented by the 5 people upstairs today. But I want to take you back to a petition that they circulated. You saw it at the previous meeting. And if you looked at the numbers, less than, I believe, 130, question whether that was a majority of people in the neighborhood. I took a look at those names and addresses, and I took a look at the names and addresses of the folks that live in Lotus Lake Estates, the biggest development within a mile of our proposed quarry. 87% of people that are residents of Lotus Lake were not on that petition. Double checked it. I can't believe this. I would think everybody would be on that petition. Not so. 87% of those people were not on it. So I looked at more names on the list, and I looked at the Troll Estates, which for 100 feet borders on our quarry property. A small development, but they thought surely all of these people will be on the petition. The numbers said different. 73% of Troll Estate residents did not sign that petition. So this statement of majority is just plain incorrect. The silent majority is not here today, okay? And have not, I don't believe, submitted anti-quarry comments to the committee. So you ask yourself, why is this? Why did they not take this opportunity to jump in? They didn't sign the petition, so maybe they're not that interested in the outcome. I think part of the reason is because they're okay with a small business. I'm a small business. Mr. Rochford, Trollogan, fairly small business in the world of economics in Polk County. I think part of the reason is we're bringing people in for jobs, okay? Vince, you know, big thing in the county, it's jobs, 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 housing, housing, housing. We want to bring revenue to the community. We've seen some of the estimates of the numbers from the state of Wisconsin. They provided us those numbers, and it's significant. We just saw a slide that talked about county sales tax. We had estimated about 60,000 a year would come in Polk County sales tax to the county. And we think that our quarry fits in just fine by the other quarries that surround us. We are not a quarry in the middle of a residential area. We're a quarry on properly zoned land. And at some point, Polk County, through the ag, before mining became part of the zoning, was considered compatible. If you're zoned correctly, you automatically should be zoned compatible. And we look around, we border on another quarry, border. We're half a mile away from another quarry. And we're less than a mile away from 2,000 acres of trap rock quarry. So to say that we're incompatible while the existing 3 quarries apparently are compatible and have been for, most of them have been there well over 75 years, trap rock over 100 years. So today you on the committee have the opportunity to stand up with a yes vote. It's not the popular vote for the folks upstairs, not at all. But could it be the right vote? let's together look at how we can address the 13 points that were a concern. We recognize those 13 points, but we can't be chasing rabbit trails. We want to know that we have standards that we will meet based on your controls. We know that we can meet those standards. Most of the standards that are measurable, we put into place. They didn't come off your ordinances. We created them based on what we see in the country, what we saw in Minnesota, which has very stringent standards. Some of our standards came from San Diego, California. You all know about California. So our standards that we said we will meet, along with your standards that you want us to be, reclamation plans, okay? Water, drainage, et cetera. We want this to work, and we want to work with the county to make sure it works. I know you're proud to represent your district. I can totally understand that. I served on the board for 2 terms, and to be elected and represent the town of Farmington was a great privilege and a great honor. So today I'm asking you, represent Polk County, make the right decision, base it on fairness, base it on scrutiny, base it on the same measurements that you've used for many other CUP applicants. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right. So. Has everybody read these letters? Or go ahead, Brad, do you have a question?
Well, I guess I'm gonna ask Malia a question. So there's an issue concerning this matter sitting in front of another committee at the county level. Does that affect this decision at all today? And how we'll move forward? With another sitting supervisor on the county board, not on this committee.
Okay, sorry, I thought you said this was in front of another committee and I was very confused.
No,
Um,
an issue related to this.
So I don't think it impacts this committee's
Okay.
Decision now.
decision-making. I think one of the things that you as the chair want to consider, I know Bob asked all of the committee members to review the videos of the public hearing, because remember, you can only use the information gained in the public hearing and the response to your request for additional information. That's the only thing you can consider. You can't consider things outside of the public hearing, the evidence that was submitted. So the public comments today, can't consider that as a part of your decision-making. But reviewing those videos, I know Tracy was not in person, but if she reviewed them, you know, I think she could vote today if there were to be a decision. Jeremy, the new supervisor, if he reviewed them, would you want him to vote? So, you know, because you do have 6 folks here. So just kind of a procedural question to get to the bottom of, to make sure everybody that
They
would,
feel comfortable to vote or not because they
Right.
weren't there.
right.
So that would be left up to you. And Jeremy, if you feel that you've watched it enough, know enough, I guess that would be up to you.
I watched it, but
It's up to you. Yeah, it's up to you if you feel confident. So here, nothing, we can move forward then. Neither one recused or anything, so they feel confident, I guess, so. So with that, do we have questions or anything? Because I guess I thought the committee put on the conditions, not somebody walks in and tells us their conditions. I guess I don't feel comfortable with that. Some of these, if we don't have a reclamation plan, how do you do how do we put a condition on something that we don't know what's there?
Well,
We
there's,
don't know if there's a 16-foot berm, maybe it needs a 100-foot berm. So,
that's true, but also keep in mind the fact that the applicant would need to obtain a reclamation permit and have their reclamation plan approved. So that's a
by a
separate,
different agency, so there'd be no conditions. So they could do it to the minimum always. All these could be to the minimum standards, and we don't get to put a condition on it, is how I'm looking at it.
it's still in Bob's division.
And a reclamation plan, as you know, requires a public hearing as well.
So all this would have to keep coming back,
But
and we could put conditions on it then again.
the reclamation plan has to be applied for and approved. There has to be either a surety bond.
But can we put conditions on it?
You could put a condition today that the reclamation plan be approved, which they would have to do before operating.
But I mean, I'm still saying, if there's something in one of these plans, can we put a condition on? Because once this moves forward, we don't get to put any conditions on stuff. If it's approved, is that, am I thinking right or not? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I guess I'm not understanding the question. What do you mean by putting conditions on the
Well,
reclamation?
say they have a rec plan or a stormwater plan. And we want to put a condition on that, you know, it doesn't go into the next property or this, they have a spoil pile on a lot line or something. I mean, are there conditions that they put on? Are these enforceable by us?
The conditions that they put on?
Yeah, are they, who enforces these? They're putting their own conditions on, but who enforces these conditions?
I think they're proposing conditions that they feel
To meet the standards, yes.
that.
But without seeing some of this stuff, are we missing things is all I'm asking.
Well, we know to date, no reclamation plan has been applied.
Okay,
So we do not know the assurances, the final, the bonding amount. And I think that was the intent of one of these conditions.
okay.
By the way, if the CUP is approved, the reclamation plan will be required, as noted in the letter that you received yesterday. There's a number of different regulatory agencies that will need to vet this application. Again, like I mentioned, if the CUP is awarded, that will be required. However, what we don't know now, or what you as a committee don't know, and the reason why it's on the list is we don't know what those financial assurances were to be or are to be. That's why it's on that list, if I recall from the public hearing.
But all of the conditions at the end of the day would have to be met. Whatever the conditions were, regardless of what they are, they would have to be met before the conditional use permit was granted, right? I mean, so there would have to be a stormwater erosion plan. There would have to be a reclamation plan that passed through a county office or a state office somewhere that was approved to say, yes, the water's staying on our property. Yes, here's the
Correct.
reclamation plan. And here's what the bond amount has to be.
You could put the conditions on as a condition precedent. In other words, all of these things have to be done before the conditional use permit grants the ability for the applicant to operate. So you'd be granting the permit conditioned upon satisfaction of all of those things. Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, because I mean, we do this, I don't want to say routinely, but you know, you have to get a stormwater erosion plan before you can get your permit. That's what I'm getting at.
Right, the erosion control plan, the stormwater management plan, reclamation plan, all those items on this list is something that will need to be required if the CUP is approved. And that's what the applicant is claiming, if you read the letter.
But then we're almost writing it for them because we're putting conditions in, not knowing what the plan is. So we don't know when they're blasting. They could be blasting once a day, twice a day, 10 times a day. So how do we put a condition on you only blast once a day? We don't know if they're blasting once a month, once a year.
Well, you could.
So I mean, we're writing it for them then. We're sitting here putting conditions on before they tell us what they're gonna do. Aren't we backwards? Shouldn't they give us a plan? And then we put conditions on that plan? Right now, we don't have a plan or anything, and we're sitting here,
Lasting plan or?
any plan, any of these, we're making up conditions, not knowing what the other side is doing.
Well, I,
Is that not, or am I not looking at that right? I mean, I'm gonna make up all these conditions. And then they write a plan to fit our conditions. Don't they write the plan? And then we look and see if it fits our conditions. Which way does it go?
are you talking about the reclamation?
All of it,
plan?
every plan, the road, say the road. They don't have a road right away. So do we put in all these, we take each one of these, put all conditions on these? Don't they say if they're, how they're gonna do it and this, and then we say,
Business
okay,
plan, I'm.
just for the road, just take just the road. The first
road?
one, access to
Road.
County Road M, double M and F.
Okay,
Okay, what conditions do we put on that?
May I?
They would have to get that permit
Yeah,
before, if that's the only thing that was left on the whole list, hypothetically.
If you
They would
recall,
have to they would have to receive that from the county highway department before they could get their permit to operate. Right?
You could do that, yes.
if you recall, this application referenced many of these plans and documents, the sound study, the traffic study, the reclamation plan from the previous application. Right?
which we don't have.
Which we don't have. This is a new application. Those items that were referred to from the Kramer operation are irrelevant. And so that's why they're on the list. Has the applicant brought any information or any clarity to any of these 13 items or all of them today?
Chairman O'Connell, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to clarify that when we put in this list of proposed conditions, that was not meant as imposing a condition that the committee has to adopt. I just wanted to clarify that point from you. This is a suggested or potential approach where, Malia's exactly on point. And I think the committee member, I believe it's Olson, is also on point, where these are items that, these additional informational items are items that are going to be required by largely by other permitting agencies. So a stormwater permit is going to be required, and it's a permit that has multiple requirements. And if that's something where the committee wants to say, we want the stormwater from the mining operation to be internally drained, that's like one of those conditions that you can put on if that's a concern of the committee. Likewise, for the reclamation plan and the permit, that is a very detailed plan where Bob's office establishes and determines what the proper amount of financial assurance is. That's not something that we get to say, here's all we're gonna, here's all Blue Rock will pay for financial assurance. Bob's office sets that financial assurance as an additional layer of protection before a shovel can go in the ground here. So, I think there is the additional input throughout this process after the conditional use permit itself. If there are additional concerns that the county has. And again, I guess we will remind the committee that there was a plan, there was a layout provided. It showed the area where the mining would occur, where the processing would be, and limited it to 10 acres over 10 years. It provided 2 different access points that we would need to get, one of which we might need to get a permit from with the county, but one where there's already an access permit on the County Highway F. So I think a lot of these things, You know, we provided the overall plan, which has more detail than other quarries have presented in their applications to the committee in the past couple of years. And so that's why we propose this idea of, if you have a concern about the reclamation plan, put it in as a condition. And that is still subject to additional review from Bob in his office. So I just wanted to clarify that, and thank you again for your discussion.
All right, so for example, the reclamation plan, we don't know if you're gonna make it a lake or if you're gonna cover it with dirt. So how do we put a condition on that? What
Well, that,
what can we put on
yeah,
there?
so that's part of the process where when a reclamation plan is submitted to the county, if the county, you know, there are certain land uses that you can see after the fact that are allowed under NR 135. And I think that's part of a collaborative process with Bob's office to say, well, can we make this a lake? Do we want to make it a lake? It would be, you know, high up. You know, do we want to just revert back to the way it's been the last 100 years? You know, those are all things that I think require some level of, I'll use the term lightly, partnership with the county to say, okay, what does the county want to see here, and how can we work this into the mine plan?
So
I mean, is
Tom's
that
gonna write the plan for you, is what I'm
no,
saying.
no,
Yeah.
the consultant, the environmental engineers and the consultants in conjunction with the operator and the county, they write, you know, I have reclamation plans in my office that are a couple hundred pages. This is simply not an inexpensive process for Blue Rock or the operator to draft the plan without any assurance that they're even going to be able to get the proper zoning authority to operate the mine. If Blue Rock spends $50,000 drafting a reclamation plan, are you telling me that the committee will then approve the conditional use permit?
No, but we could put conditions on it, look at it. We have no idea what it's gonna be. So how do we put a condition on it, is what I'm saying. How do I put a condition on? We're gonna do it. We're gonna follow the law. So that would be considered the bare minimum that you're gonna follow. So we don't have any of the vibration. We don't have any of that. The reclamation plan, we have no idea what you're gonna do. But we're gonna put conditions on it. Does that make sense to you or not? I'm putting a condition on that I don't even know what you're doing.
Well,
So if
terms
I
of-
put a condition, I want 4 feet of black dirt on that whole area so that it could be used again. And then you come up, you want a lake. Well, that condition doesn't make any sense. See
well,
what I'm
then we-
saying? It's what, are we not doing it in the right
So
order?
what I would ask the committee to focus on is, you know, when you are looking at the elements in the ordinance regarding conditional use permits, the safe and healthful conditions, do you feel that the applicant has given you a substantial amount of evidence? You know, is the drawing that they provided about where the mine is going to go, is that sufficient for you to feel comfortable? Is having a vibrations study done after they, you know, when they're doing the testing, which is what they've offered in their letter, does that make you feel like those conditions in the ordinance have been met? Do you have enough evidence to satisfy those elements based upon what they've given you? Because I think, you know, the reclamation plan, well, you know, for a larger operation, you know, is an in-depth thing. But I think let's look at your ordinance, those conditions and elements in the ordinance, and go through those and discuss whether or not you think that the applicant has met that burden of substantial evidence.
Chairman O'Connell, would be helpful to go through, you know, section 42-149.
We have that on a slide that we
We
could,
do.
okay, let's do that then. If that could help everyone then maybe.
And again, if it helped, we could go through the 13 requests for additional information to provide some context. And ask the applicant if they have a response to those 13 requests for information. You've seen these before. You use them. We've been using them every meeting for, again, tourist rooming houses. These are the standards applicable to all CUPs. Okay. You evaluate every application and the effect of the proposed use upon these following criteria. 1, the maintenance of safe and healthful conditions. How has the applicant demonstrated the proposed use is safe? And how will the proposed use maintain public health? That's how you judge CUP applications. Number 2, the creation of increase of smoke, dust, noxious or toxic gases and odors, noise or vibrations from heavy equipment. What measures does the applicant, what will be taken to prevent the control of noise, fumes, dust, odors, vibrations from the heavy equipment in the area? Number 3, the prevention and control of water pollution, including sedimentation. How has the applicant proposed to mitigate or prevent water runoff and pollution, including sedimentation? Number 4, existing topographical or drainage features and vegetative cover on the site. In their site plans, have they demonstrated that there's existing topographical drainage features that, or vegetative cover that has some physical limitations on the property that makes this property not conducive to this proposed use? Number 5, the location of the site with respect to floodplains and floodways of rivers and streams. Does the site and the proposed use of a quarry mine have significant erosion potential based upon the degree of the slope, the grade, the vegetative cover? Number 7, the location of the site with respect to existing and future access roads. Is there adequate access? This applies to number 1, to County Road MM and F. Is there adequate access with respect to existing and future access roads? If you recall, there's a 100-foot railroad right away that intersects the Rockford property to the west. You know, how is that going to be crossed? Do they have permission of the railroad? That's private railroad property. You know, how will they cross them to access the quarry location as to the east and then the County Road MM to the west? Has the railroad agreed to provide that access? Number 7, or number 8 rather, heavy vehicular traffic or increased traffic. That's the point of, I guess, number 3, the updated traffic study. Does the proposed use, is it going to increase heavy vehicle traffic or increase traffic concerns? Number 9, is there a need for the proposed use? Number 10, the compatibility with uses on adjacent land. Is this use compatible with the neighbors? Number 11, the amount of septic waste to be generated and the adequacy of the proposed disposal system. Does the applicant have adequate sanitary facilities for the allowed use? And then number 12, location of uses that within the area are not inherently a source of pollution shall be preferred over other uses that are or may be a pollution source, and within the area tend to minimize the possibility of pollution shall be preferred over use locations tending to increase that possibility. In other words, is this a suitable location and a suitable use when considering alternative sites? And so with that said, if you'd like, you can go through each of these. Back to number 1. These are the 13 items of information that the committee requested as a product of the public hearings. And again, they align with the standards of the section I just read to you, section 42-149 sub C. And they all have to be met based upon substantial evidence. So number 1, what are we talking about? Why do we ask for access to County Road M and FF? What was the context? Again, it's back to that 100-foot right-of-way property that the rail owns that intersects the Rockford property. You know, you all thought that it would need to be crossed for them to access MM or the actual quarry site. So the question is for the applicant, do you have permission from the railroad to cross that 100-foot right-of-way? Number 2, updated traffic study. Again, in this application, go ahead, Justin.
Should we answer them as we're going so we can make our notes?
Have them answer?
Yeah, sure.
If they can.
Yeah, let me back up. Can you back up just one slide, please? Okay,
This slide?
that slide. In our original application, each of those points was addressed, each one. There was a comment on it. There were traffic studies presented as far as traffic counts. You got to remember that some of these traffic counts from the DOT are ancient, but the newest numbers were presented, okay? Also in that same application was the reference to the Polk County Highway Department previously granting permission for access from County Road F. Now, unless traffic has changed, they haven't modified the road. We haven't modified the entrance. But at that time, based on traffic count, your highway commissioner, no problem with access to F. We think double M is a better access, but we have not asked the county of it. But we have County Road F from the previous study. So I just want to make mention that these points were all addressed in that application.
But the previous, what is the previous? We don't have that paperwork. The previous studies, we don't have that.
2006.
I'm talking, excuse me, I'm talking the application we presented a year ago covered all those points and did not just reference Kramer on those, okay? A lot of those were new information based on our smaller footprint and what we were going to do. The older application, the Kramer application, did have, they spent a year negotiating with Canadian National on extra track, sideline track, et cetera. Obviously, if we do not get permission, which according to state statutes, a railroad is required to give you crossing rights when you own land on both sides of the track. If the railroad, for some reason, said, we're not going to let you cross the track, quarry, it's dead, right? Quarry, it's dead. We have to get across that track. And Canadian National knows if we're going to haul on Canadian National rail stock, we have to get across the track. So it's a little bit of a cart before the horse on the railroad question. I truly think that they're not going to change from what they said at the 2009 application, but you know, I can't say for sure, but just so you understand that if they don't let us cross the track, hold on, that's simple. So I can't address each of your 13 points that you've asked information on. I think Mr. Hillquist's letter did cover them, but if I may, Bob, just a few that I have some, I'm not the engineer. The traffic study, like I said, the level of service, When I commented on our application in January of 2022, I was using current DOT numbers. And if you go to an intersection like County Road F and Highway 35, numbers are fairly current, okay? If you want to know what the traffic count is on Double M where I live, you're going back 20 years before you see that number. So they're not necessarily real current numbers, but you can look back and you can see trends on them. Reclamation plan, kind of beat that horse to death there. Scale drawings of the mine and processing areas. We indicated where they would be, and I was using prior quarry applications, CUP, when I worked on our application. Folks, you got none of this stuff from the last two applicants, the last 2 years of quarry CUP applicants, nothing. I couldn't believe how light information those CUPs contain. Covered none of this stuff, Bob. I mean, just didn't see it. The scale drawings were sketches, okay? Done with a magic marker, all right? And I agree that ours can be more detailed, can be more scaled, but they're 10 times better than what you've seen in the past. Vibration and sound study. It's a high expense to do that. And that becomes, as we've been talking here, that becomes a condition. Glenn, we'll give you the COP, but here's the condition. We have to be happy with your vibration and sound standards. And we're going to use either state measurements or whatever measurements you have to qualify that number. Right now, you have very few standards. I mean, I can't look in your documentation and say, oh, this is what it says, big paragraph. Town of Osceola has a 20-page permitting process that gives standards like you wouldn't believe for every single element we're looking at here. And you either meet those standards or you don't. But that's why they're called standards. I can't be expected driving down the road to put up a traffic sign that says 80 miles an hour, okay? That's my standard, okay? I have to go by the standards that the state and the county imposes on that road. When it says 55, that's your standard. And it's up to me to meet that standard of 55 or face the penalty. The biological study, there again, it's an expensive study, certainly able to do it, but that is a condition of a CUP, not the forefront of the CUP. Who's the operator? If you know, let me know, okay? I know we have at least 2 interested parties that have talked to us and you know what they said. You get the permit, call us back, okay? I skipped one there. Well usage effect on groundwater. I believe we said in our original application, we have access to Trollogan's high capacity well, which they are not exceeding the capacity as set by the DNR. And guess what? They use their water in the winter. We don't even operate in the winter. So we have plenty of water close by. Interesting enough, Dresser Trap Rock, how much water do you think they use out of their high capacity wells of the village of Dresser? How much? Zero. Zero. All of their water is groundwater. Not sure how they do that, but I do know that quarries recycle their water and in comparison use little water. We would use less water in 3 years than the village of Dresser uses in 3 months because most of the water is recycled. Stormwater management plan, mitigation measures, all good questions, all already standards set by the state of Wisconsin. If you have additional conditions that you place on that, you certainly can. Updated erosion control plan, same thing. The last 2, Town of Osceola, I believe Town of Osceola has not inputted any comments on the CUP. And the village of Dresser, not sure why they're included. But I don't believe they have submitted any comments on it either. So sorry, Bob, take up so much time there, but I just wanted to kind of touch.
Well, well, and to build off of Glenn, we do need to reemphasize that we went through each of those 7 points in the plan and the presentation to the committee on how the 7 standards were met with this operation. Blue Rock provided substantial evidence how they're going to meet those very vague and ambiguous standards that are subject to a lot of different interpretations. Those are all in the record in the application and in the presentation to the committee. And so now that you have the substantial evidence from us, you can approve it. And that's actually what Act 67 requires. And also, we have to be reminded of the inverse. If you're going to deny it, you need substantial evidence that we don't meet those standards. So, with respect to Bob, who I've worked with and respect, I'm a little surprised that the tone of this presentation from Bob it's more like he's the anti-quarry attorney. That's the kind of, when you're going through these 7 elements, it should be, what's the substantial evidence to actually deny this? Because we provided the substantial evidence to approve it.
That's a decision for the committee to make, whether there's substantial evidence. They provided evidence. Do you find that it was substantial? You asked some of these questions. Did they respond in a way that you feel like all of those have been addressed? At this point, I think you should start discussing amongst yourselves, because public hearing is closed, and right now it's more of a debate going on. And so this is your turn to do your job. And discuss, maybe somebody who feels some way based on, let's have a discussion.
Let's have the discussion, should we? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's where we are.
All right. Anyone want, go ahead, Brad, start us with something.
No, so I just, a question for Bob, kind of, but anybody, but do we have a list of all of the conditions from a year ago? And maybe, where am I at?
That, Supervisor Olson, that's the 13 conditions.
Yep,
I've offered to provide context.
yep. And then these on what would be page 2 of theirs is their conditions that they've brought to us and said we would agree to these conditions there.
On the letter, they have 2 pages. Do you have that letter?
Well, I do, but on page 2, they've got the limit the quarry size to 10 acres, 1,300-foot setback, and so on. There's like 2, 4, 5, 9 conditions that I believe they've thrown out, like the no greater than 55 decibels at the residence. So these are over and above. These are conditions they've already agreed to within the application. Am I correct?
I think that's a fair statement, yes.
Okay. So now I'm just going to ask the stupid question. 55 decibels, is that, I don't care how loud it is, but is there a standard, or is there level 1 decibels, level 2 decibels, or is it just the decibels keep going up? Do you understand my question? Is
If somebody makes a noise complaint against the property, then they would measure at what point that person is hearing that decibel level.
yeah, but what I'm asking is do we know, is there different levels? Well, let's say we start at 1 every time, but there's level 1, level 2, and level 3 of decibels.
That's a science question that I don't know.
Yeah, I failed too, so don't worry. That's why I'm asking the question. But because all I'm saying is if there's different levels, 55 decibels is considerably different. The tone, once I move to a different level of decibels, 55 might be twice as loud as 55 in the next one.
And who enforces it too? Yeah, I guess would be part of that. Okay.
Well, I mean, that becomes a condition, but that's theirs and that's, you know, maybe a dumb question. I just want to know, is there different levels of decibels? And, you know, do they all start at 1 and work their way up? Did you get what I'm asking, Doug and Kim? I mean,
Not completely yet. I'm sorry, I just haven't.
oh, no, I understand how dumb the question is. Trust me.
No, that's not a problem. I just trying to figure out.
So if there is different levels of decibels, one at 55 might be twice as loud as the next one. I want this 50, I mean, I would say the decibels should start at silence and then move up. I'm not just sure if that's the way they're calculated.
I think this is a state standard for mining operations.
No, there is no state standard. I don't,
There's no noise standards.
no noise standard.
There is.
Minnesota, if I can inject, Kim has, I believe it's 65 decibels. And Brad, that's not a dumb question at all. There is progressions to it and it's not lineal, meaning the difference between say 40 and 80 is not double. It's like triple or quadruple, okay? It's a complicated somewhat formula. Usually when you read about it, they equate it to something that everybody knows. A washing machine, a dishwasher, 75 decibels. Okay, well, I know a dishwasher. A jet engine at an airport, 130 decibels, earplugs required. 35 decibels in the library. If you look online at different decibels and different examples, Brad, you'll feel pretty comfortable relating it to common terms as to how loud is this, okay?
And I think that was my feeling. It doesn't just double the noise. I mean, okay,
So if you
let's
double the
say
number,
say they said, you know, 54. 54 would be way more than double of 27. You know, in
Yeah.
this case, 27 and a half. 55 is 4 times as loud as 27. That's,
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying that way. All right.
that's, yeah, okay.
Anyone else? On the,
Well, is there a statute of limitation on the county highway commissioner approving, you know, if they approved it back in 2009 for County Road F access? Is that still valid or is that, you know, is there a time limit on those approvals?
Oh, sure. I'm not sure what it is, but it's expired by now. If you haven't, my guess is it's a year.
I do not know.
Okay. I can message Mo and find out, but
I think,
I
that- I
think-
mean, because if that's part of the application that they had that, but it's not valid anymore, they're gonna have to go through all of that again for access to County Road F.
I'd like to follow Justin.
go ahead.
I have a little thing here, but one of the things I wrote down. And a year ago, the committee decided that were incomplete. So you gave them a year to do these things. And now we talk about F being, it ran out. Well, he just said that they were thinking about using double M, but he hasn't asked the county yet. So he's had a year to ask the county and come back to us and say, well, this is what they're either intending or gave us, but it hadn't been done. See where I'm going with that? Because
None of the things that were asked for a year ago, they're addressed in the letter we got, I got it this morning. They're addressed, but nothing has been changed. There's been no new information.
they didn't ask for a continuance to get that letter to us. It's been over a year.
Chairman O'Connell, would it help the committee if we went through the 13? I know I started on number 1 because it's ambiguous about access to County Road MM and F. In my notes, in watching the hearing, the context behind that again was the rail line, that private 100-foot right-of-way. And it sounds like our applicant has answered the question. In regards to the 2 through 13, I have context that perhaps the applicant can answer that is from the product of the public hearings. In other words, how did we come up with this list? You as a committee did? These are the reasons why these items for additional information are on the list. Would that help if we walk through those or no?
I would say so, wouldn't it? What does everybody think?
Want to try it?
Yeah, let's go.
At risk of being promoted to the anti-Corey Esquire.
Would it, Kim, would it be good to just, if we grant the CUP, what does that mean? Just so that we all kind of know where we're working towards. If we grant the CUP, what does that give them access for?
What do you mean access?
To
So-
apply for
so-
operational permits. They
Yeah,
still have to go
so-
through the DNR, they still have to go through the county reclamation plan, they still have all these things that they have to do before.
But
they
it ends up,
do
we
anything.
don't get to put conditions on anything anymore.
I have a slide that shows that actually. Claire, can you bring that back up? If this CUP is granted, here are the other regulatory agencies that the applicants will need to go through. So this is a quick highlight of the other regulatory agencies or units of government. So the DNR regulates standards for sound and blasting, and of course, as we know, the WPDES pollution discharge permit, so they would need to apply and receive that permit. Zoning regulates, as you all know, land use, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and we would enforce any conditions on the CUP. The Land and Water Department would obviously review the reclamation plans for the quarry with the bonding requirements, and also administers NR 151, the stormwater management plan. The town of Osceola has a nuisance or noise ordinance that may have decibel levels set or limits. And those are enforced by the town of Osceola. They also have a 2009 non-metallic mineral extractant ordinance. So that also exists. Although this is debatable, because we've heard from Anders about this before, but there is a cooperative extraterritorial agreement between the town of Osceola and the village of Dresser for extraterritorial zoning. So, and that applies within 101.5 miles circumnavigating the municipal boundaries. So the village of Dresser may have some zoning authority that would apply to this site. And then we've talked about MSHA as well and their health and safety requirements. So there is quite a list, and it's also on the back page of the letter from Anders about the labyrinth of different regulatory permits that they'll have to pull. Back to this list. Again, just to provide some clarity to why these items are on the list. If you recall, if you watched the videos, if you took notes, we talked about number one, not about the driveway permit. It's about that 100-foot right of way. Number two, access and use of the railroad. If you remember, the intent of that request for additional information was just to clarify what's the purpose of the railroad? We know the railroad tracks exist. We know they're not in the best condition. But is there an agreement between the applicant and the railroad for access and use of that rail line? Because in their application, they claim that they will use it. So that was the question. That's why it's on the list. Number 3, the traffic study. Updated traffic study. What they provided in their application is they referenced that 2006 traffic study. And they used that from the previous 2009 application. And that was based upon 400 trucks a day. This is a smaller scale operation. It's 100 trucks a day. So this new application says that there's 100 trucks a day, which is a major scale change. What is the impact of that reduced traffic, particularly on how our roads have changed over the last 17 years? We're just looking for some updated numbers. We now have turn lanes. We now have roundabouts. We have new developments out there that possibly increase road traffic on F and MM. So that was your question. That's why it's on the list. And it's on the onus of the application to address that. Number 4, we talked about that too. No reclamation plan has been submitted. The applicant claims that they'll provide, and they will have to do that upon approval of the CUP. What you were all asking for was that did not know the financial assurances, what it would cost to reclaim that property. So, and again, if the CUP is approved, there'll be a reclamation plan public hearing as part of that process. Number 5, accurate layout of site for scale drawings of mine in the processing area. This is in your packet. Hopefully you looked at it. I think at the time, in June of last year, you wanted an accurate layout of the site. This was brought up several times if you've watched the hearings. It's a low-hanging fruit that the applicant can answer, and it may address some of the concerns that have been raised. Number 6, updated vibration and sound study. Again, this application refers to the sound study from 2009, and it was inconclusive. If you recall, I think a unit of government, town of Osceola, hired Cedar Corp. And so that 2009, and it sort of contradicted the other study. So part of the new application should be a different sound study because we're looking at a different scale. It's not 30 acres, it's 10 acres. So all you're asking for was simply an updated study. Number 7, updated biological study. If you recall, there's that prickly pear cacti out on site, and that was listed by the Wisconsin National Heritage Inventory as a rare plant species. Now, that was supposed to be relocated back in 2009 outside of the quarry area. Well, is that plant back? Is it reestablished itself? And will it need to be relocated again? That was your question. That's why that is on the list. Number 8, well usage. During the hearing, and Glenn just mentioned it and reiterated again, Trollhagen offered to provide access to a high capacity well. All your question was, well, what is the usage? And he has answered in some degree. How many gallons per day? And most importantly, will it affect groundwater? That's why that's on the list. Number 9, who's the operator? I think Glenn's answered that. I think it's a reasonable request. That's another low-hanging fruit. Now, who is the point of contact? Because if we in zoning receive a noise complaint, we're going to need to know who to contact. Now, the applicant claims that they'll provide that upon or through the reclamation plan. Glenn also just said that he doesn't know. So if that's sufficient, that's sufficient. Number 10, number 10, the updated stormwater management plan, as well as number 11, the updated erosion control plan. These are kind of two in the same, even though they're different plans. You know, in the new application, it identifies an unnamed creek in the northwest corner. And the property has 10 wetlands. You know, which direction will the surface water shed? How will a large rain event or stormwater impact the overall watershed? You know, this can be done after the CUP is approved through the WPDDS permit, as you all know. The applicant claims that the hard rock quarries experienced low erosion risks. You know, well, an erosion control plan would identify how that's going to be mitigated. As well as, you know, there's going to be additional surface water runoff from the increased impervious surfaces out there. So we want to know, an erosion control plan would identify how to mitigate that water discharge, not only from stormwater, but any hard rock washing activities. And again, the applicants claim that after the CUP is approved, that this will be done. Number 12 and 13, you know, and we'll definitely give the applicant time to rebuttal, but you know, that was a simple request that the committee asked that both the town of Osceola and the village addresser provide some public input. They both have comprehensive land use plans. That's their long range vision towards land use. And this ESC, this committee simply asked the applicant to elicit input from those two communities. Whether or not they have done that, sounds like they haven't. They sounds like, and again, they can provide more information, but basically the applicants claim that the village addresser has no regulatory authority. But again, you have that extraterritorial agreement with the town of Osceola. So those are, in a nutshell, the context of that list. Those are the information, just informational requests by this committee on June 29, 2022. So if that's helpful at all, those are the reasons why these items are on the list. And so it's up to the applicant. The onus is on the applicant to address those. Is that helpful?
Yes, I think it was.
I think it was.
I think it was, yeah.
So, but Bob, now the town of Osceola had a chance to speak a year ago to the issue and I believe chose not to. So they would have been notified up front before the original hearing. Right?
Well, I think that was a request of the applicant, though, to lead that effort. I mean, I know they had a town meeting and they had an informal vote. It's all in your packet and in the application. But subsequent to that, I don't know.
Yep.
If they've collected any input from either of those municipalities.
Okay, have you? Glenn?
Yeah. Bob mentioned rebuttal. I'll take
Sure.
you up, Bob, on that. You do get an honorary membership for that last comments on the 7th. Can you bring that slide back up again? Okay.
I'll do it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the 13. Oh, there it is. Can't see it quite that far away. Okay, Bob covered all of these and yeah, I guess I called up Mo and said, hey, Mo, we still good on County Road F? And I can almost guarantee what his answer would be. And I would have said at the same time, maybe should have. Let's take a look at double M. It might be even better. But I didn't do that. And it's partly, it's very discouraging dealing with this stuff, knowing that those points that you have on there, those 13 points, at least from my research, have never been expected of other CUP applicants. Now, maybe there's low-level CUP applicants, mid-level. Maybe there's different levels to it, Brad, just like there is with noise. I don't think you have that. You set the standards.
No,
I just want to interrupt right now because this is the only trap rock quarry application that has blasting. All of the others
or
were
not,
sand.
yeah.
Not blasting.
So it is a very different, it's not comparing apples to apples. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
You'd like to think it's not, but you listen to the crushing noise. The blasting isn't the problem, folks. You regulate the crushing because that's the noise. When the neighbors hear noise from trap rock or from right way or any of the other sand and gravel operations, what they're complaining about is crushing. Well, that's what they're complaining about. Your CUP does not distinguish between hard basalt rock and blasting and benign sand quarry on 2 acres. It doesn't distinguish. The same rules apply for right now, everybody.
And again,
So-
that's a misstatement of the law. That's why they're conditional use permits. So you can put conditions based upon the type and location of the operation.
I don't see that. I'm sorry.
That's why
Milana.
conditions, I just, the back and forth at this point, the public hearing is over and I know you want to give everybody an opportunity, but this should be your conversation.
Well, in terms of the rebuttal, we do need to make it very clear that these staff or these additional information items were created as part of a staff report. And Jason created the initial document on June 1st at 6:41 a.m. before we had conducted the public hearings here. I mean, that's what his document and the metadata shows, is that he created his staff report and started creating it on June 1st at 6:41 a.m. That's before any of the public hearings here. So this isn't, this is a committee request based on a staff report that was started and drafted before we even got to have a voice at the hearings. I just need to put that in the record.
So that would mean that he went through the application and this is what he found missing. Is that not his job? When you look at it that way, at least I look at it that way. He went through the application. Here's the 13 things I think are missing that you should ask. That's what we do ask of staff. If we miss something
And they weren't answered.
and they weren't answered yet, and we gave it another year to get answered. So that's what we're looking at right now. I mean, was his job to go through it. That's why it took so long to go through this. So I don't think throwing him under the bus is doing you any justice. And I don't know what other people think, but I think that was his job to do it ahead of time, to go through it and look this up. So, all right, where are we at then? So did we think they answered everything? The other one, they have these 9. But in our other ones, when Bob went through it, we don't have any of the dust or any of that. So, I mean, we don't, I mean, there's a lot of that stuff just missing, I think. For the help, the dust and stuff, and that's in our standard CUP one, isn't it, Bob, that 149?
Yes.
So that standard one, the dust control and all that, because like this year was a dry year, it'd be pretty dusty out there. And I don't see them anything for that. I mean, and that's kind of in their, whatever their operational plan would be, I would imagine. And is there, did we ask for an operational plan or just an operator? We just asked for an operator.
Application,
For the dust and stuff, yeah, dust control.
their answer for the application. It's actually kind of combined with the noise. So we asked, this is their response to the committee and to our standards, how they will mitigate the creation or increase of smoke, dust, noxious and toxic gases and odors, noise or vibrations from heavy equipment. This is their response. And again, this is in your packet. It's tab 1A right there. Although there's no noise standards in Wisconsin, noise control is paramount to meet our goal of 55 or less decibels at any residence. This will be accomplished via in-depth crushing, berm walls, non-beep backup alarms, and control of trucks entering and leaving site. That's just the noise. In regards to the dust question, Chairman O'Connell, dust will be controlled using the current state of art methodologies. That is their response. Is that a sufficient amount of substantial evidence?
Well, not knowing what the methodology is, I don't.
I mean, if you like, I could read how the applicant responded to each of the conditions or the criteria within our code.
I don't know, do we have to go through that again or not? What does everybody think?
You know, Claire? The maintenance and safe and healthful conditions. Here's the applicant's response. The quarry will meet all OSHA and Wisconsin requirements for the safety of all employees. Standard PPE will be mandatory. Additional requirements as indicated by MSHA will be met. Number 2, that's the one I just read. They talked about how they'll mitigate noise and how dust will be controlled using the current state of the art methodologies. Number 3. The prevention and control of water pollution, including sedimentation. The quarry will recycle 80% of water used for washing. Holding ponds containing sediments are routinely maintained. No chemicals are used in the process. The only pollution sources are from trucks or equipment with leaks. The same potential anywhere as a truck or piece of farm equipment. Existing topographic and drainage features and vegetative covers on site. Applicant's response was the majority of rainwater drains to non-rock areas to the west. And they have some support documents, G and H. They're in your packet. The location of site with respect to floodplains and floodways of rivers and streams. There are no rivers or streams within the quarry area, and they have a support document G. the erosion potential of the site based upon degree and direction of slopes, soil type, and vegetative cover. Applicant's response was hard rock quarries experience little erosion risks. The location of the site with respect to existing and future access roads. Their response was access roads include County Road MM and F joining to the Wisconsin County Road M and State Highway 35 and 65. Heavy vehicular traffic, and increased traffic. The applicant's response was all truck exit routes, there's 3 total, will be determined by the quarry operator. Trucks will not be allowed to use engine braking devices. Increased traffic over 3 routes is less than 5%. The need for the proposed use for a shoreline location. That's blank. Its compatibility with uses on adjacent land. The applicant responded, zoning determines compatibility. Property is correctly zoned. Active quarry is 30 acres after 30 years within 200 acres of the boundary property. Surrounding area is zoned agriculture and rural residential with 3 existing quarry operations. The amount of septic waste to be generated and adequacy of the proposed disposal system. Waste is managed with portable restrooms and wash stations. If you recall, it's in the letter as well. These are the proposed conditions by the applicant. And they're in your packet as well. 16-foot berms to the north as needed for noise mitigation. A water settling basin will be constructed for runoff and processing of water. Hours of operation Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., 6 p.m., no nights, weekends, or winter operation. I got in here too, in the application, no night or weekend operations, March 15th through November 15th, no winter operations. That's on there too, yeah, the seasonal operation between March 15th and November 15th. Information plans will be provided. No greater than 55 decibel sounds at any residence during daytime. No operational sounds at night except for occasional rail car loading. The quarry depth will be at or above the Lotus Lake water level, the water table. The 1,300-foot setback to any residence from the active quarry area. The requested permit is for 10 years, 10-year active quarry footprint. Also in the application, which is not on here, unless I missed it, limited trucks will be used and primarily scheduled over 3 county state highway routes. Again, this is a new application. 10 acres in 10 years, 1 acre per year. Future growth would be 30 acres in 30 years. We talk about similar activities nearby. And then notes. As you know, right way gravel and Haas gravel are sand pits. So they don't have the blasting and the dresser trap rock. It does have some crushing.
I guess I
All
got a
right,
couple questions or
Go
thoughts.
ahead.
I don't, talk about the water basin. They've talked a lot about runoff, about using water for washing, whether they pull it out of the well at Trollhagen or they capture that. Bob just went over the water basin. So you're gonna have to blast to get the water basin. Is that water basin part of the 10 acres in 10 years? Or is that separate? And then more things to think about. They say 1 acre per year. What does that mean? Is that an acre, 43,560 square feet? If that's this area, are they taking that all the way down? How? That maybe not our business to
Part of the
dig into it,
operation,
but
yeah.
I think that 1 acre per year is kind of an interesting point, because 10 acres really, in the grand scheme of things, is not a lot of ground.
I do think they, in their application, indicated the depth that they would go to, and it was going to be above the water table.
Or
Talking about
this lake.
when you say that's, and
And
then
well,
say all the way
says
down.
both, yeah.
So you're gonna get a pretty good shelf in, if you're only taking an acre, what does that mean? So, if I remember right, it was 10 was it? Because then there was also an area not included in the after 10 years, but, included for their processing. So, how does that, where is that laid out in retrospect to everything? Because if you're, you got the railroad there, if you're processing on one side of the railroad and you're blasting on the other side or a ways out, that might, the distances may be affected different, I guess. You talk about sound, you talk about all that. You might be blasting on one side, but you're crushing on the far opposite side. So you're not going to be, the same, in both spots. And I know that railroad question came up, because they keep referring to some of it may be hauled out on rail. That question was asked numerous times in the hearing. Have you actually talked to the railroad about, fixing that track? Because I think if they fix that track down there, I think the crossing of the track is going to be a different situation. And then if you're gonna put a spur to pull rail cars off, then you're disturbing more of that area. To put that rail spur in. So I guess I was hoping that they'd come back with, hey, we talked to the railroad. They're still interested in, fixing that track, because you're gonna, if you're running rail cars, you're gonna have to fix that track from where it ends by F and M there, or double M, into that quarry. So, I don't hear anything, with that besides the 100-foot, because if you look at the drawing here, I mean, honestly, the quarry runs over the railroad track on the drawing that we do have. So what are the setbacks off that 100 feet of railroad right away? We're not positioned accurately on our map.
That's that first map, isn't it? That you're.
I think you're
Yeah,
looking at it. So
Yep.
it's the one that's in our packet. if you
Sure.
Look at that.
just for reference, so that we're all looking at the same map.
Kim, did you want me to answer any of those questions, or are you just in debate and leave it up to the air?
You did answer some of it, but I mean, have you talked to the railroad? I guess that was Justin's question.
Let me go back to your first one. It's a good question. It's not a cubic acre, it's lineal. 1 acre a year is really typical for hard rock quarries. They are extremely slow growth. As opposed to gravel pits that'll come and go, they'll have 40 acres and they'll be done in 5 years. Hard rock quarries grow exceptionally slow. So 1 acre a year is not at all unusual. And 1 acre a year, I don't even know if we could process all the rock coming out of that. That's at least pushing 1 million tons of rock in that 1 acre. So anyways, I think that was your question about that. And that's solely on the operating quarry footprint, not processing area. The processing area doesn't grow as the quarry grows. The only thing that grows is the size of the active quarry. And you're spot on, right? I mean, 10 acres, it's nothing. And that's in 10 years. So it takes a long time. If you look at Dresser Trap Rock, they've been there over 100 years. And if you look at the size of their footprint, and they do not do depth mining, they go out. Pretty small for 100 years. So fair question on the railroad. The last communication we had with the railroad was everything was still in play. Nothing, as far as they were concerned, nothing had changed. We still are estimating X amount of rock, the cost of the spur track, the 50 feet on each side of the track is actually good for us and them. They can build that spur track within that space. So I haven't talked to them lately, but as far as I know right now, nothing has changed with the railroad. If our plans continue to as envisioned, obviously they're still interested. Canadian National and Canadian Pacific are not the best of friends, never have been. Canadian National owns the track. Canadian Pacific had the contract with Dresser Trap Rock. Canadian National will have the contract with our operator. So they very much would like to see that quarry operating to preserve the track. And so does the Osceola Historic Society that runs the tourist train. They need that track. They do not want Canadian National to abandon it. So Canadian National is all ears when we talk about potential revenue from hauling rock out of our operation, which, as you know, also the 100 truck is 0 train. Okay, 100 trucks, no trains. We estimate that 60, maybe even 70% of the rock could leave by rail, and that would take that truck count down significantly. So short answer is I think we're still good with the railroad as of last conversation.
So when was that conversation? Was that back in 2009 or was that 2015?
The original formation of it was done, it took them, railroads are exceptionally slow. It took them a year to come up with a site plan for the tracks, et cetera, et cetera. The last communication we've had with Canadian National, probably 5 years ago. Trying to think here, 22, 2016, 2017. We assume that there's really nothing that should change. They still are not hauling any rock out of Dresser Trap Rock, or Canadian Pacific isn't. I think that's a battle between Canadian Pacific and Dresser Trap Rock, not so much Canadian National. So I'm pretty comfortable they would welcome revenue off that track.
And that is a dead end.
Right.
Yeah, so you know that it dead ends down at Lotus Lake. The rail does right now.
So another question that I got, I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time, but there on the bottom of what Bob just presented, there was a CUP for 10 years. Claire, can you go back to what Bob just had out?
Was it the list?
I think it was the list that they had. It said something about the CUP for 10 years. Does that mean that that is 10 years from the time that it's granted? So they got, you know, if it takes them 5 years to get everything, they can mine for 5 years. What does that 10 years mean? And I believe it was something from Anders.
Because it was talking about it before, then it said 30 acres in 30 years, right, Justin? Because I see
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
It's on the second page of what the handout from the lawyer that we just got. It's actually, well, it kind of talks about it on bullet point number 1, limit the quarry site. No, that's not it. It was on right there.
Yeah, this-
Requested permit is for 10 years and 10-acre active quarry footprint. What does that mean? Which permit are they requesting for 10 years? And is that this CUP?
So you could, as a condition, put a length of time and say the CUP is good for 10 years from date of issuance. Or, you know, to clear up that confusion. So if their operation needs to go beyond that 10 years, then they would have to reapply or whatever the ordinance reads at that time. But that is a condition. If you were concerned about what that request is, you could clarify it with a condition.
I mean, and that's something they're putting on themselves or, you know, would,
Right, but you could make it clear as a condition,
okay, when that 10 years kicks in.
yep, that it's from date of issuance of the CUP, regardless of how long it takes to get, you know. a
Here's a
reclamation.
permit.
So just to follow up to that, Malia, at 10 acres, let's say in 10 years, they had the 10 acres and they wanted to go to 11, and regardless of when that time frame was, they would have to come back for another conditional use permit, right? Because
If
this
you're,
conditional use permit will only be for 10 acres.
if you put as a condition, they cannot exceed 10 acres at, yes.
And I think that'd probably be included in a reclamation plan, because if you reclaim 2 acres, you know, hypothetically, that's telling you it's 10 acres open.
Right.
So I mean, you can
Yeah.
reclaim, so you could, you know, creep out to 12 or 15.
Unless you put the condition on saying
10 acres
10
total.
acres, aggregate total regardless of reclamation. I mean, again, those are all conditions you can put on if you have concerns. I apologize, but I really need to use the restroom. Could we possibly take a brief recess?
Yes, we could.
Thank you.
Yes, we can. Let's take a 10-minute.
I brought the pens. So
I did that when I took the LSAT. Just in case, but I.
Thank you. So what you're gonna have to do is I'll have to put a cigar or something in my pocket. So I remember I smoke. So every 20
We
minutes.
never used to have to go this long before.
No.
right? Never did.
That's what Doug said. Every 20 minutes, it's time to go.
Our cruel punishment.
Yeah. we're putting-
Yeah, this is what we get for Kim quitting smoking.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
No breaks. All right. Any more discussion or how are we going to go or go through conditions or what? Or does somebody want to make a motion one way or the other? Are we at that point yet?
So I'm willing to try something and we'll just see where it goes. And I guess it would be two parts kind of, but we'll just see how the first one goes. I would make a motion to approve with conditions, but not stating what those conditions are yet, because if we don't have a majority to approve, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. Does that make sense, Malia?
I understand what you're trying to do, like, but I don't believe you can bifurcate it. And the reason I'm saying that
Okay,
is then you would have potentially a quorum, a majority vote to approve. But if you couldn't agree on the conditions, it would negate that original motion to approve. So I think you have to state your motion, add your conditions, see if anybody wants to amend those proposed conditions. But motion to approve and then list whatever conditions you have in your mind and invite friendly amendments to add to the list of conditions and see if you get a second.
I'll withdraw my motion then and see if there's another motion in a different way, or ask the committee, do we want to consider what the conditions would be before a motion is made if it was to be granted?
That might go better.
Okay. And I can just keep a tally of the.
Keep a tally of them.
Conditions that you're talking about.
Okay. Well, let's start out with their letters and use their, what does everybody think about? What do they have there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 9. We missed one about the trucks, wasn't there? Bob, you said?
Yeah, well, we can bring up the PowerPoint again, Claire.
But should we, let's start there. Okay, there would be the first 9.
Yeah, and these are their proposed ones.
Yes,
Just,
of this letter.
yep,
I guess my concern
No, they're
was,
the same. They're in different order. It's a different order on the letter that we have. The letter
Oh.
that we got, they're the same, but they're different
Okay,
orders.
all right.
go ahead.
I guess my concern with the first one is it limits it right from the start. We're not the matter experts, and I don't think either is this lawyer that's representing them. Yeah, I think that's probably gonna come from a plan that's approved by the DNR. So for us to say that it should be 16 feet, and that's our condition, I mean, that might be way lower than what the DNR says. So I don't know why we would put a number on something when we're not the matter expert on that.
Yeah, but you're saying 16 feet might not be enough.
Well, yeah, or it might be way more than what the
Right.
DNR says.
No,
We don't know. We're just throwing a number out there.
But
So I think there's a berm or a way to mitigate noise and stuff that their plan that gets approved by the DNR would have to comply with.
Well, there is no noise standard, so we have to set something.
Well, no, I mean, that's one of the conditions later on.
So you could say minimum of 16
16 feet.
foot.
I don't know if,
that
Since
feels
that's what they're conditioned to, 16 feet minimum, or
Based on.
unless
your-
required to be hired based on another review like the
yeah,
state.
or if the DNR says that they don't need one, then they don't need to put one on it. I mean,
But they're agreeing to that.
This is what
They're-
they suggested as far as the conditions themselves. They're putting these conditions on themselves.
correct.
As the person that put some of these conditions on, if I may make, take the number of feet off. Berms as high as needed for noise
Correct.
mitigation. 16 feet is quite high, actually, but I mean, just leave it blank, and if it's 26 feet or 10 feet, whatever you pick will be determined by what you want sound to be at this distance, and that's fairly straightforward measurement. So just take the feet off.
So what we'll do is just establish berms.
And so I
For
think we should
noise.
take, I think we should take north out too, because
Yeah.
here it's saying the north side, we don't, okay.
Could go
what's in
any
a different direction? It could be in any direction.
Okay.
So install berms as necessary for noise mitigation.
And actually in this letter, you have this letter, don't you?
Mhm.
Okay, that's almost what that one says instead of the one up there. 'Cause it doesn't have the north in there, we'll take the 16 out.
16.
Okay,
And do we need to specify where that is going to be? Is that around the crushing? Is that around the blasting area?
it's just where necessary, it says on this one. So then it could be all the way around, east, north, south, west, so it could be everything.
It's the crushers we worry about, to be honest, not the blasting.
All roads, that.
So the next condition, instead of, I would just say that an erosion control plan needs to be approved.
Those, all the other, I think we could do one with where all other permits have to be.
Yeah, correct.
I think we could do a catch-all there,
Mhm.
if that makes sense, then try to pick each one out. I think we should just put all other pertinent.
These are all the,
Correct.
So I think if we put that condition in there, all these other ones have to be met.
Yep.
It's a
Yeah.
cover-all that we don't have to specify, if that helps, I think.
Okay, so all other permits must be obtained and complied with for any and all applicable regulatory agencies.
Yep. 10 years, 10 acres is in there, the 1,300 foot is in there, is that on this one? 1,300 foot. Noise, the haul routes, yep, okay.
Wait, so.
I'm going through the letter one,
Okay, so
let's try to get on the right, same one.
I'm writing down.
Do you have this letter?
Well, they're going through a different order.
Go through
So I'm just,
Do you have that letter?
I do, I didn't print it because it's on my computer.
Oh,
Thanks. The village.
so I'm reading off that, trying to see if it's up there, we're juggling.
On that setback one, Kim, 1,300 foot setbacks, that's basically a quarter mile.
Yep.
How is that measured? That.
As the bird flies, right?
The bird fly. I just want to make sure we're clear on who's measuring that, because if you look at where on the map, where the quarry is permitted and these last ones, and I believe that's on this map.
Yep, to the house
To that house,
is the 1,300 feet,
pretty dang close.
yeah. That's where they got the new measure, that measurement though, so
So what's the condition?
that 1,300 foot setback.
From the edge of the quarry operation, from the,
To any residence in existence at the time of the application. So that would be number 2 on that page,
sure.
okay?
Two, I'm here.
We're on the letter from.
are you in the table? or
Oh,
the
you're
quality
back here.
On
plan?
page 2,
Okay, go back
Page
and
two. So would that be from 1,300 feet from the edge of the quarry
From the
site?
quarry to
center
any
of the
resident.
Quarry site, from the property line?
it'd be from the quarry, so that's where they would actually be beginning.
Property line?
No, to the residence.
No, but what we're trying to determine is where you measure it from. Is it
Yeah.
proposed? So like when you have a map of the actual quarry where it's gonna go, it's gotta be 1,300 feet from that, in my mind. Any boundary,
Edge of the quarry?
any boundary edge of the quarry.
So the.
So any of the 10, the green or the red has to be
10
1,300 feet.
footprint? The 10-acre footprint?
Correct.
Yeah. So you get that
Edge.
closest house, go 1,300 feet draw the half circle. That's where it go.
This is the active quarry area. So our measurement, the Wallace property right there, the bottom box is the closest residence. To meet the noise, we have to do that 1,300 feet. So that's why everything is dictated by where that house is. So
So,
the 1,300 feet was from active quarry to that residence.
so I have 1,300 foot setback as the bird flies from the edge of the 10-acre footprint.
Yes. And we should have to any resident in existence at the time, because if somebody came, moved in closer, something happened, they don't have the, yeah, they don't have that. Okay, then it's got the March 15th through November for operating days. And then the hours are 7 to 6.
Okay.
So that one, okay. They said a noise one. I don't know who would. I guess that's the only thing we don't know how we would regulate.
So on that one, Kim, I mean, I would say it has to be, I'll say monitored by a third party.
Okay.
So you could have it tested by an independent thus and such so many times per year. I mean, you could put the onus on the applicant.
Yeah,
is what I'm
and
saying.
that's what I'm saying. It isn't. It's a third party. It isn't, it isn't the mining company that's testing it. It's
Whatsoever.
whatever company from wherever. It's, an independent third party.
Applicant shall annually, during blasting, during crushing,
During operations.
Yeah, during operations.
right, but then the applicant could choose to test it when they're just putting rock into truck and not crushing. So do you want
Each
during
aspect.
crushing and blasting operations? Or,
Yeah,
You won't,
crushing and blasting.
yeah, you won't hear a blast.
Well, in winter
You
time,
don't hear them anymore. Yeah.
March, it's gonna, your decibels are gonna be different in March than they are in July. 'Cause you got more
And-
absorption in July than you do in March.
Yeah, I would say,
That's gonna be complaint driven.
want it complaint driven?
I think it's gonna be.
well, it. may
If,
be, but-
if there's a
but
lot of noise, somebody's gonna complain. But I mean, we still should have a test.
Okay.
Because they have that in one of their other ones here. The vibrate test and everything before and after. And the sound study. That is in their proposed conditions on the next page also. So I mean, that is
Yeah,
covered a little bit here too.
yeah, but I would say it has to be at a minimum twice a year.
Twice.
During the
And probably
operations.
determined by the third party.
Yeah.
Not, because at the end of the day, I can say, hey, come in and test tomorrow and then just be quiet tomorrow.
Sure.
Where if the third party has the ability to just show up and boom, we're testing today.
And we're putting in that 55 decibel.
Oh, absolutely.
Do we need to put a distance at that 55 decibels? Are you
Well, it'd be-
measuring, is it 1,300 feet or is it a half mile?
It's
Because
at any residence.
I would say at any residence.
Is that
like,
I think
and what
leave it at that.
distance
property
around
line
it, though?
or the house or the
It says the
property
residence. I think we do it at the house.
Yeah, at the residence.
at the house?
But
And that would
within-
not be limited to houses that are there now, even houses that come later.
No,
No,
existing at this time.
But I still think you gotta put a distance around the quarry, because, if somebody, depending on which way the wind is on that day, it might, to the north, it might be a little louder than it is to the south. Or if,
Well, I
it-
think
still
that's why they're
different.
saying any residence. So
yeah,
it goes whatever direction it goes. In no residence that is existing as of the date, can it be higher than 55 decibels? But are you saying you want them to test a specific?
no, I just, because I look at it, sometimes it might be,
Yep.
it might closer might be quieter than it would be
Farther away.
farther away.
Direction of the wind, all of that
Yep.
makes a huge
Or
difference.
no wind at all, it's could go quiet, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
We wouldn't be opposed at all if you put a range on that 55 to 60. Because there are gonna, 55 was extremely restrictive. Minnesota is 65. This came from San Diego, California was the 55, one of the most strict ones around. But you're spot on right. Wind, humidity, tree cover, there's just a lot of factors in there. So 60 is not horrible by any means. So, you know, on a bad day, you can go as high as 60, but you know, on a good day, you're gonna be at that 55. So a range would be maybe acceptable, certainly to us, but I don't know. You guys.
I don't know if we put it right, just put a number in there.
yeah, I
That's
think
like asking
they
for
gave us,
grace.
they gave us the
Yeah.
number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, it's the number they picked. We didn't arbitrarily pick it.
Sure.
I'm
so that's all those. Now the other proposed conditions. We have 2 pages of.
Well, on that Hull Road, does double M get posted at all for weight restrictions?
That would fall under the abide by all applicable laws.
Yeah,
I just don't want, I don't want them to have a, where they can haul, but if they open on March 15th and that road's under weight band restriction,
but they can't. If they put the weight limits on, they can't haul,
yeah.
even if this says that they can be open, they can't haul if.
They can't haul over
One of
weight.
those roads is posted.
Yeah, they couldn't haul. Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, nobody can go down them overweight at that point.
yep. So do you have that first 9? 2, 4,
It's getting there,
6, 8, 9.
getting there.
Okay. Okay, the depth is above the water level of Lotus Lake. Does Lotus Lake have an elevation? I mean, can we take that elevation out of one of these and it's 985 or whatever elevation it is, that's what we use? Because then it's a number,
and what's the starting elevation?
doesn't matter, they can't go below this one. There's spots that'll be higher, lower. Some places they can go 30 feet, maybe 10 feet, but we should have that, whatever Lotus Lake is. And they can't go below that, and we should put that number, I think, in there. So that it is a number. The GIS, any of these flyovers can get that, the LiDAR, any of them.
Is it there, Kim?
Was it in the,
Groundwater is suspected at 960 feet on the west side and 990 on the east side.
it doesn't have the,
Lotus,
doesn't have Lotus Lake.
it's in here somewhere.
I've read it too.
It's on one of our maps. I thought it was 10 years.
Lotus Lake, 951 to 958. It's actually got a 9-foot. So we would take the 958 then.
If you look at where the quarry is proposed, where the old quarry was, we would be able to go down,
50 feet.
don't quote me on this, about 15 feet maybe.
You got 1,000 and 1050 on the high side, but at 1,000, you can go down 42 feet.
Because the rock goes up.
Goes up there, yeah.
So if you go from ground surface, there's quite a bit of height there. But if you look at Lotus Lake, where we are, it's relatively close. So we're not going down very.
Well, that's, oh, you might not have this one, but I have the 9. Find it? Okay, so it says 951. So if we go with the 958, highest level. That limit, and they're in the about the 1100, so
So how do you want me to word this, that condition?
they can't go below 958. Which is the Lotus Lake highest elevation.
950 feet?
58.
958 would be the elevation. Put EL in front, elevation of 958.
Sorry,
Okay,
science.
science, yes. But I mean, if we have that number, then it's specific. I mean, it's measurable.
All right, so I said depth of query shall not be lower than the water level of Lotus Lake, but in no case can they go below 958 elevation.
Correct. That's the elevation of it right now, or whatever on this one.
So that if the Lotus Lake thingy changes,
It shows it has a 9 or a 7 foot up and down.
Okay.
And we took the highest. Okay,
so I just want to see if we're all on the same page. I've got the berms, permits, setback, operation limitation, March to November,
yeah, but
independent tests at least twice annually during crushing and blasting. To prove low noise limitation compliance, no greater than 55 decibels for any residence in existence at the date of the application. No weekend or night operations. Operations are between 7 AM and 6 PM, with the exception of rail car loading if they ever do rail car stuff. Is that all good? Okay, that's where I'm at. So if I've missed something that you guys talked about,
the site, 10 acres over 10 years. Do you have that?
well, from the edge, no, you're right. Okay,
You know,
so
well, that's, no, yeah, that's not the 1,300.
I can add that.
Okay,
You Kim?
we should go down these now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just gonna say is, could we get, is it possible to get them on the screen so we can just kind of say we're good with those 9 possibly?
To start with.
to
But we
start
should
with?
get the rest of these
Yep.
put in.
You want, okay, I
I
was
think-
just saying, let's do those 9, look at them and say, okay, and then move on to those, but I'm fine with doing them all.
I think if we get them all, then put them on the screen
Okay,
to see if we have them all on there. So that, then we'll go right down our access where they would have to have that done. I guess I don't know, how would you do that, that they have access from double M and F?
Would be county approval, county highway commissioner approval.
So that, but it'd be a condition. You know, are you guys on the same page I am? I'm going to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
if everybody's on that one, kind of.
So say that again. So you're now going through the table?
Yep. And to see if they're applicable or not, or if they're overlapping.
Just state what they state there. You're good with that? Yes?
yeah, I think they have to be granted access to double M and F.
Oh, yeah.
To get those routes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we're kind of looking, because they're asking for them routes.
Yep.
So,
I wish I had more screen.
Kim, do you put on there the 100 trips per day, no more?
did we do that on the first part?
That's 100 round trips. So I don't.
Yeah. Was that added on there or not? Did we
I
miss that?
think it got missed.
Okay. Or we can look if it's on this one too, the trucks, or the traffic study, okay. This one.
Mr. Chairman and Malia, might it make sense just to briefly clarify that when the 10 years starts running, if that's at permit issuance or when mining commences or when the reclamation permit is issued and financial assurance is posted, just so that that's just not a point of confusion?
Yes, that would be a good condition.
What do you want to put in there? 10 years from date of issuance of this permit, 10 years of upon the commencement of operations.
so at the end of the day, would that not be almost one and the same? Because they will actually not get this permit, even if this committee grants it. They will not get the permit until all of these are met. So realistically, they would I'm not saying they'd be the exact day, but you know, but they would be very close because even if we grant it, they're not getting the permit today.
No,
It might be, well, however long it takes to do all of
to
these
do all these other
things
ones, yes.
before the permit would be granted. So I would say once the permit is granted,
Is when the
if
10 years
it's
starts.
granted.
Okay, if granted, it would be.
Does that make sense?
Maybe Malia can clarify this, but the permit would be approved today and technically issued, but all of these conditions, a lot of these are preconditions to actually commence mining and actually put a shovel in the ground. I'm not, Malia, I'll defer to you on how you want to word that.
Correct. So you would be granting the conditional use permit. They could not begin operations until all the conditions precedent were met. So if that's your intention, the 10 years should start to run from once all the conditions are met. Then you can put that in there. 10,
That would be my,
Yeah, because it could,
10
it's
years
gonna
from
take,
the date
that's
all
my,
conditions
that would be my intent, I would say.
because it's gonna take a year or two to get all these. If it's,
Thank-
get them.
Thank you for clarifying that.
And should we put in there that the applicant should inform you when they believe they've met all the conditions so that, or inform the county?
Will they be coming back for a public hearing? For the
Yeah.
reclamation plan? That'll be a public hearing too, so that'll be just one of the procedures of one of the other permits. So then with, I think we covered all these other, we covered the reclamation plan, scale drawings, that'll all come with all the other permits, will it not? And the erosion control. Those all come with those other
So-
permits.
They would, but I would say on the access plan and use of railroad, you know, we would want the conditions that we see the written agreement.
Oh, okay.
For use of the railroad or crossing?
Crossing.
For the crossing.
I think also the next one, I mean,
Traffic study?
we need a current traffic study, not, you know, not necessarily an updated one, but a current one.
Okay.
And all you're looking for there is number of vehicles traveled.
Yep.
Reclamation scheme. So then this SPS 307, we would require that also. Or the next two on this page. For the vibration sound study. And the biological study. Would be new ones.
Before anything happens.
Those would be current studies also then?
Yeah.
Okay, so that we're not using old. Okay, with those two.
If I back up just a hair, just for clarification, the reclamation plan and that would set the bonding amount, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Chairman
And then-
McConnell, where did you land on the traffic study?
That it has to be current, he said. The update traffic study, instead of updated, it would be a current study. Is how
So
Brad stated.
put a condition on there that they provide an updated traffic study.
The proposed
Current.
truck routes and the
Yeah.
level of service?
Yes. Okay.
Staff wherever would need the scale drawings too.
That'll come with the recreation plan and that'll come with the erosion, storm. Those three will all come to the county in scale drawings and stuff, I think. So the
Um,
reclamation plan, stormwater erosion control plan, all three of those fall under the other permits that we put as a condition.
So let's say this traffic study, just for argument's sake, says there needs to be an improvement somewhere. You know, like a culvert or widening of a lane, or if it says that there's some public improvement that is necessary, I don't think it will, but if that happens,
Then that's, we'll have to take it under consideration. If it has to be, I mean, if a turn lane has to be added or something,
right? So I'm wondering if you want,
Who incurs that cost?
right,
okay. I would imagine that's, yeah. We'd have to put that back on this first one for the access to the roads, yeah, if they need turn lanes or anything. Would be
And I
determined
would
by
think
the
that would-
highway.
I would think that would be determined in the first one.
okay,
Yeah,
On the, I mean, I would think that's gonna be, because the updated traffic study is just, hey, 200 vehicles a day go past the
yeah,
spot where we laid the counter down on the road. So I would think if in that hypothetical case that a turn lane was needed, it's gonna be the highway department saying a turn lane is, you know, because
it's
of where it's
recommended
at,
or
a
needed.
turn
yeah.
lane is
Okay.
needed, but I think that should be added to the access to the county roads actually, right?
Yeah, probably.
You know,
added there if it
determination of
needs
if-
turn lanes or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
did I hear you say something about scale drawings, or is that,
That,
you're okay with that coming with the other plans?
that's gonna come with the rec.
All right.
The scale, and it'll come with the stormwater and erosion. So those three plans probably could be referred to, I guess, as some of the other ones that have to be done.
So they, okay, they don't make sense.
So that would fall into other permits.
Correct.
Okay, so those, do you think we should list them out?
Yeah, you're going a little fast. I'm not a court reporter, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so it's the recreation,
I think you should list them.
reclaim process, the stormwater and erosion are those three.
Now, we already put in there that they have to obtain all necessary permits.
But do you want to specify these three? If not,
Problem is, you start specifying and then,
we might skip one,
right, and then they're gonna say you had a list. So,
that we missed one. All right, so we'll leave that out then. Okay. So now, did you do the vibration sound study? We did that. Is that in there?
not in mine yet.
What have you been doing?
I did. I did the noise independent test
Okay,
twice annually, 55 decibels from any existing residence on the date of the application. So do you want a vibration something?
well, that is, it's called for an SPS 307. So whatever that
I think that
requirement
defaults-
is, should be put in there.
I think that defaults back to all
All permits,
permits and licenses.
but it's a study,
That's a state.
but that's a study, not
So,
a,
so you just want a copy of it. It's required in something else. You want them to supply that to us.
well, it says update vibration and sound study. And
Right.
we have biological study. I just thought those two should be updated and current then. And this is what they put in theirs, that
Go to the
they're
DNR.
proposed.
That's gonna go to the DNR.
No, not unless we ask for it. It's a study. It's not a permit, it's a study. So there's a difference
So I'm just gonna put that you want a copy of it.
of the 307 and then of the biological studies. Yes, that we want copies at least then, so that was done. Because those you don't need a permit to do. That we know of.
And there again, um,
Is that
We want current updates of them.
of those?
So not
Yes,
something from 9, 10 years ago, but now.
yeah.
Sound study pre-query survey. Thank you. In the quarry. Near the quarry.
We'll have to have the condition, name of the operator,
We're still on a biological study.
still back there. Okay, that's another page back. Okay,
So you want to consult with the DNR, have the applicant consult with them to determine
Yeah.
if those endangered resources are
yeah, so that it's a current,
reviewed. Yep.
yep, so pretty much that,
It's not shall.
Resources. Resources reviewed for the area covered by the quarry.
Do we need to be specific?
if they find anything
Anything. But it needs to be a will, not a shall.
for the study.
They will conduct the study, not shall.
Shall means they have to.
So shall conduct
Yeah.
All the ways
resources review.
lawyers turn. Don't do that. Then it's reasonable and harmonious.
Shall means you have to.
That are legally required by DNR to be done.
Sorry.
Her backup.
Well, you,
So you're covered? Okay, so now we'll go to the next page. The well is gonna be a DNR issue. We can, so that's another permit. The operator, we want to know who the operator is. So a condition is that we know the operator in a 24-hour number, I think falls into that.
Do we need with that 24-hour number, do we need a contact person or will that 24-hour number suffice?
Yeah,
You call it manned, because it doesn't do any good if you have a number that just goes to
Exactly.
voicemail.
sure.
24-hour number plus the number to whoever is managing would be managing it.
Or to the operator,
Yeah,
the operator. All right, so you have that 24-hour number deal and to the operator of the quarry.
Okay.
Emergency number or something, whatever, however we want to place it. Stormwater erosion are in the plans. Town of Osceola, consideration and input. If there's a license or anything for that, does that fall under all that? We specifically asked for that.
They have a
they have to get all licenses from. if
From
it's the
everyone
town, the
anyway.
county, the state,
Okay, so they're one of the licensing. So the next two there are licensed ones, okay.
Town of Osceola, non-metallic mining license.
Yes. So that falls, we don't have to be specific with that, okay.
In Deer Park. Oh, in there somewhere.
And dresser,
Or dresser, I mean.
okay.
Oh, do you want me to send this list to Claire so you can look at it and make sure I haven't?
There's an HDMI port up there. You can just plug your laptop in up there and
Boy.
do it that way.
There you go.
Who's under 35 here?
Who's under
In the
35?
hearing, they talked about the value insurance, like if your
Yeah, it's
property
been
values, is that a condition?
Hold on, let me just delete this because it's something else.
I don't know. That was part of the. But they would.
It's a question, I don't know how we, that'd be a question. Because I don't know how you-
The value insurance in one of the hearings, they talked, in the second hearing, they talked about they would carry insurance if your neighboring property devalued.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That wasn't.
Is that a condition that we can place?
Okay, see, that's, I didn't,
Cute.
but
I know it was in the video. I remember it now.
Do you want me to go stand up there and type? Boy, you're asking a lot.
Here's how we type.
Can I just email it? Well, whatever you think is best.
Wanna just go up there.
Can we make it bigger?
Your glasses,
It's
Brent.
either that or I gotta move closer, one or the other. There's only two options.
Gonna be up here running it.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. That's more than big enough.
There.
Make sure it all fits. That's all right. Leave it there. I'll just move closer.
We're getting new glasses.
Do you know why my thingamajiggy isn't working?
I don't know.
The mouse thing? Or my touch screen?
You're locked out.
Oh. No. Oh,
I was trying to scroll down so they could see the last one.
I think because we're in meeting mode here.
So we end up with 15.
Well, and did you want to add something about devaluation insurance
Yeah, that's in here.
or?
It was in their rebuttal or.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Scroll. I just want it noted for the record, that I did not break the laptop.
Thanks, Molly.
All right.
County issued,
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
comes out of your paycheck.
Oh, there.
Yeah. their
That-
budget.
Oh. Okay, ready?
You should
You
say.
guys read, you've read, I presume the top 7, so we'll just scroll down. See the
Is
end.
that zoomed in enough for you folks in that?
So did you want to add that one?
I'm just, that the applicant brought that up in the testimony on day 2.
Okay,
I believe if I recall, it was the adjacent or any properties that touch the quarry that they would take out insurance to, if their property devalued in the time of the quarry was there.
okay.
There was a distance of insurance protection for the sale of property is what it was listed as.
Distance insurance.
I thought it was
There's a
adjoining,
distance.
like the ones right next to it, like, but I can't remember. It's in the testimony.
So adjacent
Does
current
anybody remember?
property owners.
Yes.
You know what kind of insurance that would be? It'd be,
I don't know what it's called.
okay.
Just a quick question or clarification for the committee with this condition. If there's like a mining agreement or license with the town that creates some type of property value or property protection in that agreement, would that type of item be considered to have met this quote unquote insurance provision? I just want to make sure that we're that I think there's flexibility to provide that property protection, even if it's not insurance. And Glenn, you can obviously step in if I'm out of bounds, and you can kick my shins through the internet.
Glenn's the one that talked about it in that
Yeah.
hearing.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Said it was
Yeah,
pretty
the,
inexpensive.
The town of Osceola, the current permitting process for the town of Osceola is very distinctive on ranges and valuations and well failures and foundation cracks. I think the county could easily default to theirs or just replicate it.
personally protect.
Oh, don't start an argument out there, please.
So
That's what you had said.
we'll have to ask
That's what
folks to
the
leave.
insurance is for.
We'll have to ask even the applicant to leave. Everybody, this is not how this is gonna run, okay? The insurance provision would be to address value that is outside of actual damages. So devaluation based upon the fact that my house just isn't worth as much because nobody wants to move next to a quarry. So I think it's outside of what Anders is talking about regarding the permit from the town. So devaluation, not based upon, there's a crack in the foundation because of, vibration, but just in general.
Proximity to the quarry.
Right. And I would believe that would include devaluation because property values are generally going up. But if it doesn't go up as much, that would still be a devaluation. Any others?
See any others that were on our list?
So somewhere, I think if we go back up to like the level of Lotus Lake, somewhere didn't they say they would also stay above the level of the lowest well or the highest well, however you want to look at it.
Of the highest, yeah.
The highest well. So should that also be in there?
So add that to here, depth of the quarry should not be lower than the water level of Lotus Lake or the depth of any existing well within how far?
I would go with the 1,300 feet because that's just what
The other one is?
the other one is.
Okay. So that'd be the quarry that, yeah.
Because there's no homes within the 1,300 feet, so why would you put it in there?
Well, in case somebody moves in or something,
But that's all existing.
that's all.
It's all related to existing, so if you move within 1,300 feet of it and build a house, that's on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thing would be is the related aquifer. If I'm thinking about it, right?
Okay.
So you've looked at them. Is it okay if I sit back down? And then if you want to tweak them, or do you want to keep looking at them?
I don't know. What does everybody think? Is that a pretty good list or not? Or can you add, subtract?
I don't think we could finish with the 1,300 feet because there's no houses in that.
Farther than,
Well, is it a half mile or is it a mile? I mean, because what's the elevation of, is it Trollview Estates or anything around Lotus Lake? So anything in Lotus Lake should be at least 40 feet deeper than the lake, right?
should be, yes.
At least, I'm just, and it's trap rock, so it's probably deeper, but what about Trollview to the north? What's that elevation? And I'm on that map we have. If it's 1,000 feet, again, it should be 40 feet at least, if not more. So you should be below that 958.
To the north is 1,002 also in that elevation. If you go the half mile, you're probably covered. If you want to put that in there as a half mile instead.
Half mile?
Yeah. I guess so, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we should be.
You go 3/4 of a mile. Because you won't get all of Trollview.
It won't get all of it or get off close with it.
It'll be close, but
Just make a blanket statement. We just make a blanket statement, like any damages to, or any damages to area wells resulting from mining operations.
How would you prove it? That's gonna be tough. That's gonna be, you know,
We're doing with a half mile, we're gonna have to still prove it.
Well, here they would have to stay above the elevation within a half a mile because
yeah, we're staying above it, so they couldn't suck their well.
just another thought. I think in some point there they figured the water table was what, 960 to 980.
Just sit down. There's a cold, freezing cold vent right above me and I'm starting not to feel my toes, so I'm gonna sit down, but I'll
All right.
put it back up here if we need to.
And I believe it was in Bob's, that they figured the water table was 960 to, wasn't it 960 to 980, I think it was.
would be where the water table was, because it was when they were talking about the wetlands. That there was, what, 9 wetlands on there? So do we need to change that 9, the level of Lotus Lake to maybe where the water table used to be? Rather than worrying about going down to Lotus Lake. And that should cover all your wells to not mess with any of that aquifer.
If we went to the 960, it's only 2 feet difference, isn't it? Yeah. Let's see if it had that.
Bob had it on one of the slides when he was talking about the depths.
See, did you see it on one?
It was on one of the slides, Bob.
Yeah, I am.
It was believed that the water table I thought was 980. Yeah, it's in-
Right, 960 on the west side and 990 on the east side.
$960 on the west. So
And 990.
and 958 would be to the south end where Lotus Lake is. 58 that. So you want that added?
I'm just asking.
Oh.
Bob, was the 990, you said on the east side, was that like east, like the whole property line on the east or on the east side of the proposed 10-acre quarry site?
On the east side, the proposed 10-acre quarry site.
So it drops 30 feet and
Yes.
10 acres.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty straight up and down up there. Should a different number than the 958 or leave it at that? Is what we're at.
Well, if you're trying to protect the water and not go into the water aquifer, if the water table's at 990 in that 10-acre well site, you're in the site. Wouldn't it make sense to stay above that water table?
990, they can only go 10 feet down then.
Well, 10 to 110. I mean, because it's anywhere from, it sounded like 1,100 feet.
960.
You got 960, 990, it says.
Railroad elevation's at 980. The highest elevation on the property is 1,100.
Is 1,100. So you want to change it to 990?
Well, if the railroad's at 980, then I
980,
think
yeah.
980 would, I mean, again, I'm just throwing it out for discussion.
So they can go 10 feet below the railroad bed is all.
The
No,
railroad's
it's 10 feet
1080
too low.
or 980.
So it should be underwater.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, yes. Okay.
Do you want me to change something?
Just throwing it out there for debate. That's all I'm doing.
All right.
Again, the railroad, which is on the west side. Groundwater is suspected at 960, so 20 feet down.
20 feet down.
On the east side, it's at 990.
It's going up the hill and over the hill. Yeah. All right. Change the number, we can always change it or something. I don't know,
958, that's Lotus Lake.
is the lake.
I'm hearing a lot of commotion to do it. To change that. I mean,
No.
And it's fine, I just.
All right.
wanted to bring it up.
So then the only other thing is, you did bring up, there's those 10 wetlands to be protected. I wonder if we should do a condition, or is that'll be under a DNR permit? Because of the land, the 10 wetlands will be,
a stormwater erosion control plan. both.
okay, so that'll cover the wetlands, that'll cover the protection
Shed, yeah.
in that dry run or whatever. Okay, so those are covered, all right. Okay. See anything else? To add, subtract?
Offer a point of clarification.
No.
No, I guess. Okay. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with conditions attached. With it, no mining starts, no activity starts until all permits and conditions are met.
I'll second.
Second from Jared. Is there any other discussion then? No other discussion then. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I,
Okay, 2 opposed, 4, so it passes. Okay.
Thank you.
We're at
Can you bring up the packet? Yeah. Pick up the meeting packet.
so I'll draft your findings conclusion
Oh,
and
should we go through those?
I've got,
You've got them.
but I just, as far as how would Jason do it? Would he bring it to you guys at the next meeting to sign?
I think so, because it's quite, it's lengthy.
Yes, well, you'd have them prepared at the meeting. But, yeah.
Because yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently he would have had them ready today, but I am not Jason.
Get it prepared, yes or
I'll get it
no,
ready for you and for the next meeting, okay?
to sign in and to read, that we can look at it to make sure it looks right. Yeah. Because it was going to be quite lengthy and stuff, so.
Yeah. Okay.
So you don't have to freeze right here and do it.
We probably then should put it on
The agenda.
the agenda only because I'll want to confirm with you that I've articulated your findings correctly. And
Okay,
if we tried to do that now, I think it would take too long. I'd rather draft what I believe I heard from your findings and then bring that to you just to say yay or nay, or, oh, this
sure.
needs to be tweaked. That would be a better use of our time.
Okay.
The next thing, the tourist rooming house. So the next thing on the agenda is the tourist rooming house. And Bob noted to me that I had a Scrivener's error. Again, this is me trying to stand in the shoes of Jason and help out just by redlining. This was the proposal to take away the conditional use permit for tourist rooming houses and go back to just the state minimums. I neglected to include the 7-day minimum stay. And so that was my error. That was intended to be in there. I will of course fix it, but is that the intention of this committee? To go forward, and if you can scroll down, Claire, until you get to the red line.
Just
Part.
tell me a page number, because there's a lot of.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, hold on.
There's only 45.
Yeah.
It says 150 on my screen.
45. It shouldn't. say that.
You'll just have to scroll down. It's in 2 ordinances, as you all know. It's both in the shoreline and the comprehensive.
There's a red line on
Thank-
page 2.
Could you just pull up the actual ordinance itself rather than the line? Oh, down, slow. There you go. So it would say maximum rental of 180 consecutive days, minimum stay of 7 days consecutive. So assuming that I had done it correctly and included that, the next step would be for me to draft a resolution amending the ordinance and a petition with the clerk. Then we'd hold a public hearing. and decide whether you wanted to do that, get rid of conditional use for tourist rooming houses and just go straight to the state minimums.
You understand? all
Yes,
that? Are
that's-
we-
that's, I
we're all
think-
landing on 7-day minimum then? Is that,
The 7.
in
Yeah,
other words, Malia, inadvertently struck that, but we would
Yep.
strike this.
in that
Wouldn't
7
Strike that, because we're not saying up to 7 days per,
per month,
Saying a
we're going
maximum
7
rental
days
of
at a time.
with a minimum rental period
Of 7
of 7
days.
days, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that was and the only other change is getting rid of the
Conditional use.
conditional use.
Okay. So that falls under the state short-term rental.
Right, it would
Fall.
just
under
be a
that.
land use permit. They get it, they would have to comply with the,
Sure.
that's,
That's what you requested.
is
right?
that what we're gonna do then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my question is then, do we get rid of, because I don't see it here, but do we get rid of our definition of transient houses, which was the conditional use kind of to go bigger than 6?
Yes,
Mhm.
Disappears.
that would go away. Okay,
That's what,
That's
that was
what-
my intention, 180
Okay.
days.
understand any current applications would fall under the current unless they withdrew their application. So if they're pending conditional use, I'm sure there are.
We do have a couple, and then we've been encouraging new ones to wait until this ordinance is passed. And then you guys all know about the complexity to track all of this,
That's,
particularly those in the interim here.
yeah,
So we'll have to manage that ourselves, so.
okay. All right, so everybody else, what do you think? We should move this on? So it does?
Yes.
Okay,
I was just gonna ask Bob one question.
yep, go ahead.
People that have a permit that says 7 days out of a month, but as it does there, can they come in and get a new permit instead of having to get a conditional use?
Yes, they can,
They would if this passed,
if
yes.
this passes.
Just seems
Yeah.
helpful to the
Does the
department.
minimum of 7 consecutive days comply with the state?
Yes.
That's a minimum standard, or their standard.
It's called the
The minimum.
right to rent law for short.
So we're trying to get it if they overstep that, it's commercial. Then you'd have to get rezoned and everything.
That's just in the shoreline district or all?
It's in both
In the
comprehensive and
shoreline.
shoreline.
So it'll be in both, yeah. So with consensus, yes, we should do that, have our public hearing.
Well, yeah, I have it penciled in for the next agenda, so
Sure.
not the public hearing, but the final review of this.
The final review, and then we'll set the
That will
public.
set the public hearing.
Okay,
You know.
all right,
Okay,
works well. All right. So 9, before we go into closed session, what else are we gonna end up with?
Well, the product of this meeting, I suppose a final review of the conditional use permit application to establish a trap rock quarry for those 7 parcels in the town of Osceola. So we'll have that final review, correct?
Yes.
Okay, also, we have 2 rezones. One in the town of Beaver. Rezone from RA5 to M1, which is mining. And another one in the town of McKinley from Ag Farmland Preservation to RA5. That will be facilitated by our consultant, Claire from MSA. Another topic item would be the annual budget review, like we had heard earlier from Don. You noticed his timeline. That's also within the 2023 work plan and under the month of September. Also looking at the work plan, Chairman O'Connell, there is a deliverable about user data on county trails. Forgive me, maybe someone can refresh me what that is. I know the Parks Department did put out
Some
Is that
counters.
NPS or
counters,
whatever?
but last time I visited, I'll visit. I don't think we have some qualitative data,
Okay,
but I will follow.
Bears got them, huh?
I think we have user data, but we don't know what it is. Is it a bike? Is it a horse? Is it
Yeah,
a
it's,
ranch?
it wasn't a good counter system, yes.
Bigfoot?
Okay.
So that
The forest work plan, did we, do?
forest work plan, we're looking at the second meeting in September.
Okay, the second meeting, okay. How about going back in August here, this tax deed, that 216, has anything happened there yet?
We're still working with
Mhm.
WCA.
So that's still sitting. Do we know if we have a lot of over there? I think last time there was only 15,
I don't know.
so we're still sitting somewhere. But it hasn't been,
I think
Didn't go-
WCA is recommending united front and a shared process, and they're still working on that.
okay, because then otherwise it's gonna go to a 5-year instead of a 3-year, isn't it?
It is now.
Oh. Yeah, okay. So that one we won't put on till, God forbid, we can get an answer from somebody. Okay,
We'll put it on once we learn more.
forest plan, the budget. Yeah. What programs are under us that we should evaluate? What programs does this committee have? Do we have any other?
Yeah, I don't know, that's interesting. I mean, that could be part of our annual reports that we've submitted to finance for the budget.
Sure,
Those are metrics.
okay,
We deliver those periodically throughout the year. I know every January we give our annual report, so. I think
we have other
that's-
programs under us? Don't we have any other under us?
No.
Because West Central, all those went to general government, didn't they?
Yep.
We don't have any outside
Nope.
for us.
Just the ag agents for our UW extension.
Okay,
And they'll be coming, I believe, in. We'll see them begin in January.
sure. Okay, and then what, if anything comes up? Okay, so we should be not too bad of a meeting, won't be as long as this
We'll
one.
review today's work, the 2 rezones.
Yep, and the rezones
Update,
and the budget.
Whatever else arises.
Will there be an introduction of the folks that we're contracting with for ZA work at some point? I suppose they'll have to come here for,
EOA is next Thursday, so I'm gonna help Claire facilitate that variance.
We'll meet them at the meeting.
Here, that's billable hours, so I don't really want them here a lot. I mean,
right, I suppose.
so there's that. You'll see her in 2 weeks, or rather.
In 2 weeks, we'll see them when they come.
September 6th.
So then, and we'll see what she can do.
Right, we've given her
Meeting for us,
all of her
yes.
templates. They seem to be proficient and qualified. So
Okay. I guess, yeah, we'll meet her when we have the rezones.
yep, rezones and CUPs.
Yeah, so that'll work. Okay.
In fact, I think, the second meeting in September, they'll be presenting a tourist rooming house use.
Okay.
There's no conflicts with Labor Day for our first meeting in September, right?
Labor Day's a Monday. We come on Wednesdays.
Yeah, but the July meeting,
Yeah.
the July meeting.
That's because July 4th could change. Labor Day is always a month. Don't play the
You
holiday.
like to meet?
Come on.
You like meeting?
Oh, I love meeting Bob.
All right, so we're good. Do we need the closed session today?
Well, not necessarily, just an update on the WRA litigation. There's a hearing on my motion to dismiss October 5th.
Oh,
So it's a month and plus
I'm
out.
waiting.
So obviously, if the ordinance changes as it relates to tourist rooming houses, it will render moot one of their claims. So there's that. But unless you have questions for me, there's obviously, you know, the update on the Stour. Really all.
does anybody have questions for her? Hopefully not, so we can get to 11. Number 11.
Jeremy Sharon used to do that.
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Nicely done, Jeremy.
Yeah.